What's up, everybody? I'm just driving home from dinner and figured I have like a 25-minute drive, so why not hop on Spaces and talk about this updated earnings report that we have. And it looks like we got Scott in here. Scott, if you can chit chat, feel free. If not, no worries. Bet if you want to chit chat, sheep as well, no worries. Alright, so I think it's February the 15th, which would be next Thursday, I believe. So I was saying that I was going to be excited if we got, because Robinhood was saying, I think the second week of March, I think TD Ameritrade had put out, like Cash was saying, the last week of February, I think. And now we got a PR from the company, I believe. I haven't seen it. I just saw the DMs from Scott and Cash. I've been busy this afternoon, but looks like, earnings next Thursday. So that'll be very interesting for all the reasons that we kind of already discussed. There could be a beat on revenue. There could be a beat on the earnings per share, right, the EPS. We're going to have what I'm most excited, or maybe anxiously anticipating, is the outstanding share size update. Really want to see how much dilution has occurred or hasn't occurred. And I think market is going to have a big reaction towards that. Maybe a nothing burger, who knows, but with nearly, 4 or 5 months going on, basically radio silence, I would imagine we're going to have some updates here. On number one, the Lyme pathway, I imagine 𝗪𝗧𝗛𝗪 is going to want to touch base on the updates regarding winning this phase 2 of the Lyme panel, what we're going to be doing with the award money, maybe like the timeline anticipated for like an FDA submission for a Lyme product. Certainly all those things would be reasonable questions that might be addressed on the earnings call or on a Q&A. So I think that's on the front of my mind, at least, especially with the phase 2. We're down to 5 winners, and potentially a phase 3 with a lot bigger prize, and not just the prize money for phase 3, but an FDA submission and maybe a commercialized product, right? Now, even if that were to occur, an FDA submission after this phase 2, let's say an FDA submission occurs sometime in February or March, we're looking all the way out until June or July before you hear back from the FDA on any Lyme clearance, I would imagine, just based on prior timelines. So if that's the case, then investors are going to wonder, okay, well, if Lyme's not going to be commercialized until June, July, what's the update on our current pipeline revenue streamlines? So I think we're going to get an update on the Poland, the second batch of Poland T2DX instrument orders, which was anticipated by John back in October. I think we might get an update on some of these Vanderbilt studies that are occurring for, I would imagine, I'm trying to think of the right phrasing here, but basically like protocol standardization, I think would be a good phrase to use regarding like the next generation sepsis device, right? Because we do have, and this is maybe a third thing to touch on, right, the T2 resistance panel and not just the study that has already been completed or is wrapping up, but also the Duke study. And I think it would be interesting to get John's comments on this Duke study, right? Because what I find interesting about the Duke study and T2 resistance is that this panel, this T2 resistance panel, has already undergone, a trial. From what it appears, from what we've seen, leaks of preliminary final results on their trial that look pretty positive for T2 resistance. I forget what website leaked that, but that was like a month ago at least. I'm thinking like January, December when I saw that information. So, it's like, okay, John, why are we doing this Duke study? If we've already done this study and they're positive and we're going for a commercialized panel, why are we, entering into another study that could take time and expenses away from the company? And we already have positive results. What's the main premise of the second study that's being done with Duke? So I don't know if that's going to be addressed or not. I would imagine he's been talking about T2 resistance for over a year now, and to not have another update, during this earnings would be very, very surprising to me, almost alarming to me. So, Lyme, T2 resistance, Duke, Vanderbilt, biothreat. I mean, my God, that should have been number one. I mean, this thing was commercialized back in September, right? It's February. 5 months later, almost a half year later, do we have any revenue? Have we sold the panel anywhere? Does the government really want this? Didn't they subsidize this? What's going on? Right? So, yeah, there's just there's a plethora of uncertainty that should be converted to certainty after this earnings report, in my opinion. And historically, just in my observation of markets tend to react poorly to uncertainty, and they tend to react much better to certainty, which just on a logical aspect does make sense. Although the market does move illogical at times, so just because it makes logical sense doesn't mean the base case. Alrighty, just making sure I know where I'm at here. Alright. So, anyway, if anyone wants to hop up here and add their thoughts on this updated earnings report, it is significantly what's the right word? It's much more in advance than what I had anticipated, right? Like Cash had commented, right? Like I was gonna be happy if it was on the 28th. Now it's on the 15th. Holy smokes! I got ants in my pants. It's like next Thursday can't come soon enough. And I imagine we're going to have some update on this NASDAQ delisting notice, right? I mean, there's just like 5 to 10 questions, that very, very important, deep questions that are hopefully going to get answered. What is up, Cash?
Hey, I didn't want to cut in. Continue.
No, man. You're good. So yeah, I was just saying how like we've essentially been holding these space calls, but really they've been like Q&A calls, post earnings Q&A calls basically since the last thing. We're just sitting here bouncing ideas off of each other, trying to get some sort of direction. And I think finally next Thursday we're going to have some more direction. Now, whether it's positive or negative, who the fuck knows? But
Yeah, I think we could call it speculation calls.
yeah, definitely. Like we, I'm not pretending that we're gonna like the information that we're gonna be updated with, but um, certainly last earnings call was one of the most underwhelming, one of the most frustrating, aggravating earnings calls I've ever been a part of with T2, as evidenced by me coming home from work that day and us having like a 5 hour long freaking therapy session of just vitriol towards the company.
Yeah, it
So
seems,
I have a hard time seeing that happening again this earnings.
but I feel like because we've had kind of that pattern of frustration, I feel like maybe and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe we should be cautiously optimistic in the
Yes.
approach.
Yes.
But and I think that you probably touched on a couple things before I hopped on here, but I want to play devil's advocate and say, okay, there's a lot of things we want to know. We're probably not going to be privy to a lot of information, especially if they're in talks. They're probably going to stick to bullet points and numbers, right? Because that's non um, divulging, I guess, is a word you could use. So for
Right.
me, but again, regardless of how you cut this up, right? They have to divulge their market cap, their outstanding share size, right?
Yes. Yes.
So no matter how you cut that, that's going to be positive,
Big facts.
right? So if we just stick to that, okay, they have to prove their MLS, MVLS, they have to divulge that. They have to divulge outstanding share size, what their market cap is. And then um hopefully some they have to divulge numbers if they have any sales.
And it's funny that you say that. I actually think before you hopped on, that was actually the number one thing I said. The first thing that I'm most excited about for this earnings report is I just want to know the outstanding share size of the company. That's all. I just want to know what our market cap truly is. You know?
And yeah, and I kind of I put up a post earlier when a lot of stuff was coming out, and you've mentioned it many times, and it's very true. The market is looking for two things, right? They're looking for, are we compliant, and do we have sales?
Yes.
And
Yep.
that's
Totally.
still what's in the air. But if they can establish at least a baseline here, right, with the quarterly numbers, and if they show their compliance and they show any sales, that's going to be hard to look at that negatively, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Compliance, sales, and then level of dilution that has occurred.
So I mean, because we could speculate on the Lyme thing and these Duke studies, but I will say if they are in talks, they might
You're
not
not gonna
be.
you're not gonna hear anything.
Exactly. They may not be able to even talk about it. So
That's
we
a
might.
really great. That's a really good point, Cash, because I'm sitting here beefing us all up for maybe all these answers, and you're 100% on the money. If they're in talks, you're gonna probably hear another frustrating drone-like earnings report from John.
Yeah, it's going to be bullet points and it's going to be numbers because
Just
that's
stick to the script.
non-divulging.
Yeah,
Yep.
stick to the script.
But this could still be very bullish in the fact that it's going to answer questions to the market, right? We're still looking for compliance and any
Yeah.
sales.
Exactly. So we don't necessarily need to know all the nitty gritty details of the pipeline advancement and all this. What we need to know is, has there been dilution? How much dilution? Are we compliant? And are we going to have enough money to survive until next quarter? So I agree with you. That's a really great point.
So I would say maybe cautious on, yeah, getting answers still as to future goals and whatnot. I think they have every right to stick to just financials and
And then
fundamentals.
I would agree. The question I might have then is, obviously if they're in negotiations that are active, less likely that they would provide, I guess, like a forecast, right?
Yeah, but I think any sales they have to divulge, right? Because they have to
Well, any
show those
current any
earnings.
sales, yeah, any sales that they have now, they would have to divulge.
Right.
But
So that
I'm
that
saying
could be
that
the Poland thing. The-
forecasted, like next quarter.
yeah, so forecasting could be null and void, right? They could completely just this could just be like a robotic numbers thing. But you brought up the Poland thing. I forgot about that. Um, I mean, the bio threat, I think that's a little pie in the sky. We would love to hear it, but I feel like fulfill and for me, because I feel like fulfilling those orders would be forecasting. So
Yeah,
unless
unless they've already happened. Yeah, for sure, I agree.
yeah, and they could easily say, "Oh, we have orders in, but we haven't completed them as far as payment." So that
Right,
could
like
still
back
be an
orders and
open.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, because if they can't, like, right, the government could say, "Okay, we want X amount of bio threat panels, blah blah blah." But if they can't produce them yet, it's just an order on the table. It's not a sale. Correct.
Sure. I think the market would, yeah, they would probably poo-poo that initially, but I think any wise investor would actually maybe buy that, right? Because they understand that, hey, this is unmet demand because of just lack of manufacturing and distribution, not because of lack of demand or, lack of quality of a product.
Right, but I think that if it's not already sold, they're not going to talk about it, I guess is what I'm saying. Because
Oh, true. Yeah. I see. Because they know that they would probably be sold if they like say,
exactly. And they again, if they are in talks, then forecasting is going to be it's not going to happen.
frowned
It
upon.
really.
Yeah, frowned upon for sure. Yeah, that's a
So
good.
it is interesting that they added the fourth quarter, the full year, and then company updates, quote unquote, whatever that means.
Wait, so what did they say? I didn't even read the PR.
I think it literally, and maybe I should look it up, but it said reporting fourth quarter. Let me look and see. I'm sitting here, but I think um, I'm going to paraphrase fourth quarter, end of year, full year reports, and company updates. Oh, did we lose him? Oh, we might have lost him. We'll give him a minute here, see if he can come back around.
Yo, that is my bad. I got
No, we heard you. We figured you got cut off in the car there.
yeah, I got cut off and then like I could hear Vet and it sounded like Vet was talking to me, but he was actually talking to you and I couldn't hear you and I was like so confused.
we kind of because you were saying say what was the verbiage on that, and so he kind of piped in and we were kind of bouncing around with he was hoping that the CFO was going to be there, and we were summarizing that's probably
Right.
yeah, it would make sense being that it's a fourth quarter and the full year. But it also vet what did it say? It said and company, or not company, but
And business updates.
Yes. Yeah, business updates.
That's so funny. I was literally talking to you, Vet, and Cash must have been talking at the same time and probably saying the same thing because you were responding as if you were answering my questions. I was like, "What the hell is going
Oh,
That's
on?"
I could read your mind.
Yeah, I was like, "He hears me, but they
Ooh.
don't hear me. What's going on?"
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Checkmate.
Okay, good deal. I was trying to talk too, and I don't think anybody could hear me. I thought T Camp went offline or something.
Yeah, no, I'm back. I'm in my house now. We're good.
No, I was just saying too, Taylor, that I hope the CFO's on that call, especially for a year-end
Oh, I hope so
update.
too.
Because
Well, that's what I was saying this, and I knew you guys couldn't hear me because nobody responded. But I'm like, we didn't really get a good explanation of why he was off the call on the last earnings. I mean, like we got like a hey, it's a personal thing, but
yeah,
like it's year end. I mean, this should be the CFO probably speaking more than 𝗪𝗧l. I mean, going
oh
over
yeah,
all these financials.
exactly. Because that's his job. That's why they pay him the big bucks.
Yeah, like if you're not gonna, yeah. So I think we'll definitely hear from Sprague. And if not, I mean, then something's up because
Yeah,
you
that
know,
would concern me.
Well, I
yeah,
feel like it has to be that way, right? Because I feel like they are kind of pigeonholed into this data and financials and sticking to numbers. And then this whole, company, updates, whatever.
Right.
That's, I mean, where do you go to we could speculate to the moon with that. Like, that's very leading.
yeah. Have they ever used that verbiage before? I mean, I know I've been here for the last 3 years. I should probably be answering that, but
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you.
I'm like, I can't. I feel like I've heard business updates before, like used in their verbiage, but I'd be talking out of my ass. I honestly I wasn't paying attention that closely.
I
And
mean,
somebody
like,
tweeted too earlier that this is the first time since 2019, I forget who it was, that there wasn't like a preliminary update to the financials like we had the last time. Typically,
Yeah.
there's a preliminary and then the
Yes.
finals. Now he had mentioned, I forget who it was, the who
was it
posted that.
T2 all aboard?
Uh, maybe, but he said the last time that happened was 2019. Where
Wow.
so I don't
And
know if
I
that
and I believe
means
that.
anything or.
Oh, I think it does. I mean, we could be reading into it, but I've definitely over the past 3 years have seen a preliminary earnings every time. So,
Yeah. So he
um,
must have gone back because he mentioned 2019 was the
yeah,
last time.
and frankly, the preliminary earnings has like hurt us a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
if we never use the word pre ever again, I'm like totally fine with that.
yeah. Like every preliminary earnings that's ever come out has had a negative price reaction. I'm
Right.
just like,
It's like a warning.
oh, totally. Yeah. Hey, um, all beware. This is not going to be good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so they have to know that like there's so many unanswered questions with this, update comment that they made. They know they've been quiet, so I
Yeah,
guess there's a lot to read into based on, what they talk about and how far they go away from just basic numbers.
agree.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, Checkmate? We haven't.
Hey, what's up, guys? I had a question about a buyout. Do you think that there's any potential buyout for T2 in the near-term future with all the assets that they have?
Man, we haven't talked about that yet. That's a good question.
I love it. Checkmate. You're gonna get a lot of sarcastic responses here, but
Sorry.
it's a very
Oh,
good. It's a
it's
very
okay.
good.
It went right over my head. I didn't even realize it.
No, you're good. It's a very very good question, but we have been on these space calls been speculating on a buyout for a while now. So yeah, no, we definitely do think there's a buyout here.
Who do you think would be interested in buying them?
There's a few candidates that we've put together. I think a short list, and anybody's welcome to add to this list. But a short list would be, we'll start with QIAGEN, with Thierry Bernard being on the board and recently leaving the company. Danaher and 𝗪𝗡𝗡𝗘𝗧. There's a lot of salesmen in the current company at T2 that has relations to Danaher, and Danaher, their sepsis portfolio definitely fits our portfolio. Thermo Fisher would be a third buyout candidate. Both of those have billions of dollars on cash that are available to deploy, and both of them have been going on buying sprees as of the last quarter. So those would be like the top three, in my opinion.
What about like an Eli Lilly?
So Eli Lilly is definitely possible, but I think they operate more on the therapeutic side of things. I honestly think any of these are possible because this technology is so agnostic that it can fit into anyone's portfolio if they have a diagnostic portfolio. So it doesn't have to be a perfect fit. It's a very agnostic technology that can be molded and developed. But I think just with the current diagnostic interests and the portfolios of those three companies that we've already talked about, I think those would be the first three that would be most interested.
I got you. What is the market cap of the company at today's closing stock price? Does anybody have that handy?
Usually Scott knows quicker than I, but I think it was like 14 million, maybe 15 or something, maybe lower.
I think we're right around 17 million current.
Nice.
But again, we're all asking the same question, right? Checkmate is that this earnings is going to divulge a lot of clarity as to dilution and market cap and where everything's at, because we've been in the dark for last few months.
Right.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Are you interested in a position check, or are you in this thing, or are you just hands off for now? I'm just curious. You don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, I used to kind of play it a few months ago, and I'm just wanting to kind of buy back in, but trying to figure out if there's any upcoming catalysts that maybe could drive the price up, or what's on the near-term horizon for T2.
Yeah, I think you actually share. I think you probably are a good representation of probably a good percentage of retail out there, because over the last 3 years, this has been a very volatile stock, and there's been people that have made money here and lost money here. So I think there's a lot of people who, are interested in the stock that have dabbled in it in the past. StockTwits has like 50,000 plus watchers, despite this thing being almost 100% down, over 3 to 5 years. So I think that you are similar. I think there's a lot of people on the sidelines that are like, I've been burned here before. Like I've seen this thing have a couple reverse splits and dilution. I don't know if I want to get in this, but yeah. So that's actually kind of a nice little litmus test.
Yeah, I think I used to trade it before the forward split you talked about.
Yeah. No, it would have been a reverse split. I hope we do a forward split.
Oh, yeah, sorry, reverse split.
No, you're good. I hope we do a forward split, at some point if we don't get bought out, but yeah. What's up, LaFleur? Haven't spoken to you in a while, my friend.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, he says, businessman.
Looks interesting, man. Very, very interesting. Glad to finally hear something from the company. Glad to finally see some PRs. Glad to see some traction. So,
What are your thoughts into this?
I mean, I think it's got to be optimism, because I don't know.
No, I agree, bro. I agree.
I want to hold it because I don't know, but
that's a good answer.
So yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic because I just feel like the company's been silent for so long, and then we know that there's been some kind of movement in the background.
Hey, I got a question. Is there an options chain on this thing?
No, it's not.
There was. It's DOA. The options chain kind of went into well, purgatory, I guess.
What's
Whenever,
interesting, I was just going to
yeah,
pipe in on the options real quick,
yeah,
and
go for it.
options. It's the old options change before the reverse split, so it's not active. It's basically like a end of runway options chain. But what's interesting is I did see that there's like January 25 options still open that I didn't see before, and I found very interesting because I didn't notice that before. But anyway.
No, there's definitely an open interest that's significant on the options chain that is illiquid at the moment, which sucks for any of the retail that are in those. But and I wish I would have sold, covered calls before the options chain just obliterated into nothingness. But yeah, no, the options chain, and that is an unfortunate part. Although if this is a buyout, the options chain is really irrelevant. But in any sort of if you're hoping for like a short squeeze, options chains are very relevant for the structure of a short squeeze. So that's why I've always thought that this is like a buyout, especially after, the options chain went DOA. There's no mechanism for a short squeeze here without the options. I mean, there is, but there isn't, Like the GameStop thing really happened because of gamma squeezing in the options chain. Like we all know about the excessive short interest that happened with GameStop, but like the amplitude of that move was definitely, attributable to the options chain. So, in the back of my mind, I've always thought, okay, yeah, short squeeze is possible here because we're just so down and it really doesn't make sense, even in context of the dilution of the company, that we would be negative 99.99777768, whatever it is. So that's why I'm thinking more buyout.
So
But
kind of moving forward on the whole earnings
yeah,
call coming up on the 15th, just because I feel like that's our catalyst coming up. And
yeah,
what's your thoughts that's safe to think based on basically company updates approach? Do you think they could talk about, I mean, the Poland thing, if there's numbers involved with that, right? Or studies, I think active studies they could talk about because it's public. I guess that's what I'm saying is that anything that's public already, I feel like they can talk about and divulge because it's not going
yeah,
outside. What's your
non-material.
thoughts?
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. Like if they're in negotiations, yeah, I can imagine that this is going to be a very limited earnings report, but they can still provide updates on studies, but non-revenue stuff. But I honestly think,
Yeah, I think the
I,
biggest thing is going to be revenue.
I honestly do think we are going to get kind of some material update on revenue here, just because if they're not going to announce a buyout right now, and then they don't announce material updates on revenue, this thing's going to be dead in the water. 5 months passed by the last earnings or 4 months, whatever it is. It's and no
But
revenue update,
but
you got to
here,
provide some update on Poland or something like that.
Well, maybe I'll throw out a scenario here that Vet kind of brought up that, of course, crossed my mind is, let's say they're in talks and they're in final talks, but
Sure.
they have this date that they've got to cross off the list because they haven't dotted the T's or dotted the I's, crossed the T's on the documents yet. So they've got to produce these numbers, and possibly the person that's acquiring them says, hey, we want you to go forward with these numbers, right?
Sure.
Which would keep them from going beyond basic numbers and public stuff. But
Could
so
be.
if
Could
that
you
were,
be more specific in terms of pipeline or revenue goals? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, so if that were the case, if they're in finalization but it hasn't happened yet and they've got to come forward again, I feel like they're not going to talk about forward statements as far as monies. They're going to have to divulge, right? Their outstanding share size. This is stuff they have to do every quarterly. It's mandatory, right? Their outstanding share size, which is going to give them your market cap based on price, right?
Right.
Current. And then any sales. They can't hide it. It has to be accounted for. And so, like, let's say if they have sales through Poland, they're going to have to talk about that. They could talk about some of these studies. The Lyme study is public. But as far as, let's say BioThreat has like orders or whatnot, if it's not finalized and they haven't paid, or it's not, in place, I could see where they could not talk about it, and they could still have, and they could still, I think, could leave us in the lurch as far as their financial stature. I mean, we're going to know how much money they raise because they actually have to state that, how much money they have on hand. So that's going to be obvious, right?
Yeah, you're right. Like the investors are going to know a picture of, like, the financial health of the company,
But they could still,
regardless of what they come out with. Like, we're going to have
but but so I guess I'm saying I'm going to wrap this up, but I'm just saying, like,
You're good.
there's still a chance that, in my mind, that they could sell this company next week or the week after earnings, right? But they still have to produce their earnings numbers, because legally.
Absolutely. So what you're saying, and tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but what you might be saying in a different way is the company might come out with like a pretty, I don't know, just a standard earnings report, doesn't shock anybody, but then, because they're abiding by, some, M&A negotiation and keeping things under wrap, and then, like, 2 weeks later you get a surprise, like, oh, hey, by the way, we're being acquired by such and such.
Right. And I think if it's super generic, right, again, and it sticks to the facts, numbers, it doesn't go outside anything that's public, and they end it and we're all like, what the hell again, and we're scratching our head, I think that actually proves that they are in talks.
Yeah, that'll be the loudest silence you've ever heard. Right?
Absolutely. That's really what I'm saying, is that, reading between the lines here, we can actually learn a lot by even the least that they say, or what they don't divulge. It can be more telling than not.
Hey, do you guys know what their cash burn rate is? Like per month, per quarter?
This guy's killing me, dude. This guy's killing me.
Dilution Tracker has their cash. Nobody knows for certain. The company. There's some discrepancy between what the company is reporting as their cash burn and what Dilution Tracker has reported. It's somewhere in the ballpark between 4 and 12 per month.
Okay. Well, whenever you talked about the options chain going away, did you guys see Holo today?
I saw it on StockTwits, but I don't follow it.
Yeah, so it's another low float. It had done a previous reverse split. I think the options went away, and it squeezed today. So.
Oh shit! 1,000%. What the fudge?
Yeah.
Oh my god! And what was the catalyst on that?
No news. I think it was just a low floater. It performed a reverse split last week.
So wait, this thing did 1,000% intraday, and then it doubled after hours. So it did like 2,500%.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my Christ! Micro cloud hologram. And I'm sorry, you said this, but I was still blown away. What was the catalyst?
I don't think there was a catalyst.
Oh, it was just a low float that just like went.
Yeah.
Don't you love that?
Yeah, I mean the float on this is what, 3-4 million? What's the float?
Oh, here was the catalyst. The CEO.
It's probably going to be around 7 once they release the 10K.
This is probably
estimate.
racist, but Chinese IPOs have been floating. or have been going crazy. Is the CEO Chinese? 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧?
Yeah, it's Chinese.
Yeah.
Another one that was a
So,
sympathy play was 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧.
HK. Okay, so there's some sympathy plays going around low floats, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that just falls in. If you're not even following this from like a fundamental perspective, there's just like what Checkmate is saying is there's like a technical rotation into low floats right now, and T2 definitely follows into that category.
Yeah, that's kind of why I joined the space today. Actually, it was based off of that, what I knew about
Sure.
polo.
Yeah, no, we welcome everybody, Everyone's trying to make a dollar, I think. So luckily, we've been doing these for months, and a lot of us are investors, and some of us are just, some of us, I don't think in this group right now, but sometimes we have people that come in here who have shorted it. Basically just Joe, I'm pretty sure. So, we have a pretty wide diversity of people and a pretty high quality of groups. I think we've had some hedge fund managers join and from time to time and stuff like that. So I don't know. I've said that this is like GameStop 2.0, but is there such a thing when things are going like 2,500% in a day? I mean, geez. What's up, LaFleur?
So just want to see your thoughts on kind of like that volume node from, I guess, a couple weeks back, almost months,
Yeah.
that just stood out. So is that kind of like planting a seed, and people have been planting these blocks of buys and intraday 2K, 5Ks, and things like that we've seen consistently?
Yeah, exactly. All I know is we all saw a block of 2.5 million trade in 2 hours weeks ago when price went from 6 to 838. That was something. We don't know what it was. The only context that we had around that trade was an insider gaining like 6,000 shares. So, Cash and I think, have been along the mindset that there may have been some dilution that occurred during that block trade to raise some cash. But no pun intended. But I mean, I'm with you,
I
LaFleur.
mean, how much could they really be raising if there's no liquidity for real?
Well,
It's
there's
crazy.
that, and I'm of the mindset. I think where you're headed is, I think that was like an either not an insider, but institutional or a big whale entered the stock. And 2.5 million.
Hey guys, I gotta go eat dinner, but I followed all of you, so everybody have a good evening, and hopefully let's make some money on this.
Yeah, no worries. The rest of it's recorded, so thanks, Checkmate. But yeah, no, I think I'm with you, LaFleur. I think like that was a big buyer or a big whale, and we've all seen the transactions every day. 5,000K blocks, 2,500K blocks. Like, it's every day. We're watching the stock. Like, they can't hide this from us unless they're doing the dark pools. But even in the lit pool, we can see these block trades. And is it you? Is it me? I'm not trading 2,500 blocks. I've been buying 25 shares. Okay, those are my block trades. Like,
All right, so can we just kind of have a little fun and kind of speculate at
hell
least some
yeah, dude.
some
I think
some
we're about to be
positivity
dude. I
of
think
what
we're
we
about to
could
be
expect?
fucking rich in the next like month or two, bro. I'm
So
not
what
even.
was the catalyst last summer? It was the restructure of the CRG deal, correct?
Yeah, exactly. That was the last catalyst. I think sent us a restructuring deal. Sent us 10x. Okay. So I honestly think the next thing is just a buyout, LaFleur. I think we're just gonna get bought.
I really can't believe that the PR today about the LymeX didn't do anything. I honestly thought that was pretty big news, but
I mean, but I guess being that it's public information, it's not necessarily seen as a catalyst. I don't know. I agree though. I thought it would be big, and then I didn't join the spaces with you guys. I don't know when it was yesterday, but about how it's universities left, and there's no way. Like, come on.
Okay, so all right, I agree with you guys. I didn't think it was going to be big, but all right, we are negative 4% week over week currently. Okay, we just added $265,000 to our bank account. We just won a phase 2 of a LymeX competition. Negative 4%. Oh, okay. On 40,000 volume, on 70,000 volume. Guys, these are like a fifth, a tenth of my position personally. We probably make up the collective volume of these daily trades.
Yeah. But if like restructuring the CRG deal moved the stock that much, how does this news not move it at least 2x?
Yeah, I think this news was big news, Scott. I think the problem is that the market is pricing in uncertainty. Exactly what Taylor's been saying all along. The fact that we're still not compliant, right? And the market cap is still like under, and there's a chance of delisting. I think they're taking advantage. The market is pricing in a delisting and hoping that retail like panics out. Because
Agreed.
it is big news, but they're just suppressing the news until, and that's another reason why, if these numbers hit the paper and they're good, they have any sales whatsoever, right? And they show that they're compliant, and this, like, that's going to be hard to keep this down, right? How do you, because the only reason to keep it down is because of the uncertainty. Don't you agree, Taylor?
I agree wholeheartedly. I think actually, instead of saying suppressing, I think the better way of, or I shouldn't say better, I think the way that I think of it is this security is currently priced for bankruptcy or delisting. And once investors know the updated outstanding share size and the updated revenue and cash on hand, this will automatically be priced much, I guess, closer to its relative valuation. Because this is
Yeah.
priced at a, right, if something is being delisted or bankrupt, right, like you're going to price it as close to zero as you would. And then obviously not zero, because there is uncertainty, right, that this could not go bankrupt. And that's what's right. There's uncertainty both ways. It works both ways. But I think right now, I agree. I think this thing is as priced as close to as you can get to delisting or bankruptcy, with a reasonable amount of uncertainty that it can reverse, right, on this next earnings report. And we have a technical setup here for a gap up to $17 and $33. It was in 2 trading days, guys. It's not like we have to trudge through fucking, 10, 12, 14, 15, 17, 18, 20, 20. No, dude. There was a gap from 33 to 17 to 10. So the price on the upside, if it's going to be priced not for bankruptcy, not for delisting, it should go back to what it was, right? Because I mean, I honestly think before, like 100 million valuation on this thing was relatively fair, given its current revenue. Obviously I agreed that it was much higher in the future, but like given its current revenue and it's losing money, and yeah. So I mean, what would this thing be at 100 million valuation right now, right? Closer to 20, 25 bucks. Makes a lot more sense. So I think this next earnings is the catalyst to gap, whether we gap up the day of earnings or around that or a week or two, who knows? But
Right, because they're pricing in uncertainty. Once numbers hit paper, there's no more uncertainty.
yeah, right, exactly. You can't. What are you going to say? You know the numbers, until the next month, right? And then the uncertainty gets baked in after a few days, right? Like the market digests the numbers, right? Weeks go by. then there's a new level of uncertainty for the next quarter, right?
Do you guys have a number on the revenue that'll move the needle?
I'm terrible. I should be much better with this. Honestly, like,
I mean, we know their burn rate, so
I know their burn rate, but I don't even know what's their quarterly revenue. Like 4 mil? Like, I don't even.
It is 2.4 projected.
2.4? Okay. And then what was their last earnings revenue?
I think it was like 2.1 maybe. Something
All right,
around
so
there.
that means that they're expecting another 300,000 in revenue. And we know that there's a second order to Poland. We also know that they've been very, very active in their Middle Eastern conferences, right? Like, or maybe not Middle Eastern, but Asian, Eastern European. And then, so, there's definitely a possibility of maybe contracts over there.
Do you know, like, Poland? I know they threw some numbers out as to how many machines. Wasn't there
Six keeps popping up in my head, but I don't know if
six machines? Yeah, because they talked about if they fulfilled the one, right, they were going to fulfill X amount more.
right.
And we know,
Yeah.
we can do quick math on that, right? Because we know the machines are X amount of dollars.
75,000 per machine.
Yeah, so six would put it around that, right? Like 300,000 area.
But then you get recurring revenue for all the panels for the existing machines.
And we also don't have any revenue projected or expected or baked into the revenue for BioThreat. Yay or nay? Yay.
BioThreat is not going to show. I personally feel like they're not going to show the revenue until there's a contract, and they have to be able to fulfill that contract based on production.
But Cash, it's been 5 months, brother.
I'm with you, dude. I'm in the same boat, dude. I'm just saying, like,
I think you might.
They can't
I think-
divulge numbers that they don't have, though. They can,
No, but I think that's what they've been quiet about. Like, I honest to God think that, and hey, this is a good thing. We have extreme on both sides, right? Like, Cash is like, I don't think BioThreat's being reported despite being on the market for 5 years, and I'm like, hey, I think there's a contract, and maybe one of us is going to be right, or somewhere in the middle.
Oh, there's a contract. I just don't think it's fulfilled, so they're not going to show the earnings. And also, I feel like, and I mentioned this before, this is a win-win, right?
Oh yeah.
If they divulge that there's a contract with BioThreat, not only is that going to blow this thing up, right? But also, it shows its hand on M&A. If they don't talk about it, then the M&A is still in play. Either way, it's a win-win.
So contract talks would be more so 3-letter in government, though, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and we know
Like
and the funding and the budget has been approved. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And I don't know how the election kind of.
And Biden has been very, very fortuitous to our military, I believe, from a funding standpoint, or at least Ukraine's military.
To be honest, I think the biggest secret weapon is that Canada or shit. I don't know why, but I just do.
Well, I'll tell you this, LaFleur, from a clinical standpoint, Canada is becoming a big fucking problem. And nobody fucking knows about it. You guys know that TV series that came out, right? About the fungus that like infects the people and then ends the world.
The Last
of Us. It's like what was it, HBO or Max series or something?
Yeah, that's some like real stuff that could happen.
That is real shit that can happen, and people don't like understand that. Like, Candida is a fungus.
Yeah, did you see the article I posted the day on that? I can post it to the thing. It was a pretty good article that just came out like within the last week about how they're having new cases that are popping up. And the alarming part of the article that really got my attention is they basically said if once this thing finds its way in the hospital, it's basically unable to be removed
It can
because it spreads that fast.
so it is so fucking hard to treat these infections. All right. This is probably anecdotal and it's probably confirmation bias because of my investment in T2, but I'm acknowledging that before I say it. In the last 3 months since I've had my urgent care job in October, well, I guess it's more than 3 months now. I have noticed, and again, this could be confirmation bias, and I'm looking out for it. I have had several males come into me with like Candida infections, either on their feet or in their groin area, right? It's called like jock itch is the layman term for it, right? Or athlete's foot, right? But these are yeast infections, right? And I've had several males come to me, and I'm telling you guys, I've been practicing for 7 years, okay? Like, I've had an uncanny amount in the last 5 months or whatever of these yeast infections. And they've been men who've been trying like over the counter, antifungals, and they're just like not going away. Now, it was probably because they were like, poor hygiene and they were using the same towel. And like, I would tell them, hey, are you using the same towel? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, doesn't matter how often you apply that cream. If you're using the same towel, you're reinfecting yourself. Right. But this is how like opportunistic the infection of yeast is, right? Like not all bacteria are like that, right? Like you have a bacterial infection on your face, if you use the same towel, there's a chance that you might not get reinoculated. It depends on the virulence of the pathogen. And yeast infections are very virulent, right? Like they're opportunistic, and when they take over the organism, they really spread, they form a network, right? And so it's hard to, in your microbiome, it's very, very, we're just now learning about more and more about the microbiome, and yeast has a very important effect on that. And with the increased incidence of obesity and diabetes in this country, guys, come on, we all know that yeast thrive on sugar. All pathogens do. It's carbohydrates, right? Like diabetics are very, very known to have yeast infections, right? In their intratriginous areas, their armpits, their groins, because it's warm, it's moist, and they're at a hyperglycemic state constantly. This is the trend of America. You don't think yeast infections are going to increase? And by the way, guys, if you can't detect the yeast, or you're not very good at detecting it, or you're not looking for it, you're not going to find it. It's just like, 500 years ago when people, like, depression was called, something else, right? Melancholy or whatever the fuck, the blues, you know? Like now we know that there might be an organic component to depression, right? Like a neurochemistry, neurotransmitters. It's no different for this is why medicine is like an evolving field. So this is the beauty of T2 is if we have the ability to detect Candida right away, this thing is going to be invaluable to the world. I mean, America first, because we're just an unhealthy nation. And that's where it is. But sorry, I just went on like a soapbox for like forever. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I posted the article on the space if anybody wants to check it out on that write up.
Now I want to watch The Last of Us. Thanks, Cash, for posting that. Oh, did we have Iguanero still in here? Yeah, my friend. I just got to see your comments. Let me look at them. Sorry about that. All right, let me see here. I gotta go. Don't like this latest. They've been Okay, I'm gonna read some of the comments because I don't think I've been ignoring people. So, it looks like 14 minutes ago. I don't like this is the latest they've been ready to deliver fourth quarter earnings in several years. The latest, okay, yeah, been mid to late January before. Yes, they have been. Not.
Well, hold it. 2022 was March 13th when they reported.
Oh, really?
Yes, I just looked it up.
When was their preliminary though?
Let me see if that's even in here. Let me see.
I'll continue reading. Not unusual, but notable. Hoping this is because they were waiting on confirmation of a good news to deliver on call. Agree. They don't have.
Are we losing you,
They don't have many more chances. I would agree. I agree.
Taylor? Is anybody else? Are you cutting out for everybody else too?
I can hear you.
Uh-oh.
Oh, it must be me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Vet.
Okay.
The other thing I was thinking of is, did they wait till that Lyme posted so they can put that in their financials?
No, because it's got to be year end,
Yeah.
like
December.
That'd be on this quarter.
Yeah, like for fourth quarter, end of December 31st. That's the cutoff.
Yeah.
So that's what they're reporting, like for financials. You close your books.
Unless they already received the check, because it was supposed to end in December originally.
Well, maybe
And
it
then
could
they
be in
did.
receivables, or yeah, it could be possible. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I like. I'm butchering this name. I'm sure Iguanero, but Yaguanero, Scrotian. I like these comments. Yeah. Cautiously optimistic. Notable. Yes, it's like a mushroom, but not an actual mushroom. Yeah, fungus is really cool. Like if you dive into, I need to actually do some more research into like fungi. But they form, like this, almost like a nervous system. Like even like in the forest, where they can communicate. And it's I don't know. I've watched a documentary. I need to watch. Maybe I'll watch one tonight. But yeah, I just unless this company's we've the reason why we keep coming to the buyout, is because it's not because of the lack of potential of their pipeline. It's because of their current lack of manufacturing and distribution ability. Which our one friend did mention that right, our truck driver delivery guy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right? I mean, he said that the company's been active, right? Isn't that a little bit of information that it's like that Tesla, the drone, like Elon's doing the production under, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if anybody else caught the fact that he's like, oh, they're getting some shipments from across the world. And I think he knew where they were coming from, but he didn't want to divulge. Did anybody else catch that?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And he probably didn't want us to, but yeah. Or maybe he did, but yeah, no, I think that the company's been quiet, right? I mean, I've
So what do
always
you think of this
to an
scenario?
earning historically, I shouldn't say always, but historically on this company for the last 3 years, there's never been a time where I've entered in earnings with more questions than I do now. And that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a positive result. I'm just saying that it's a notable thing. Right? It's out of the norm, right?
So company updates. What do we think
Could
that's
be.
going to tell?
Well, I think some remarks on Bernard leaving the company, maybe, right? Or some managerial update.
Maybe the delisting.
Well, that would be
What's the
not.
status on that?
Yeah, for sure.
Hopefully they mentioned something.
You would hope. I think the delisting is like the most pertinent thing.
Well, you would think.
Well, doesn't it go hand in hand with the numbers being processed, right? Because the market cap's going to speak for itself.
Yeah, so you're saying like the outstanding share size, if the outstanding, well, yes and no, right? Because this could be the double win, right? If the outstanding share size is relatively the same, but then you get a huge revenue beat, and all of a sudden you know, like the market capitalization. Well, okay, so I see what you're saying.
But either way, right?
Because
What you're
if
saying,
the
or
revenue beat wouldn't necessarily bake into the market cap until like the market reaction, right? So I guess they wouldn't have been compliant. So I see what you're saying there.
but I mean, they could use it as a, as a positive push for the price of the stock to go up and get that market cap. But
Well,
the outside
I think
there,
it's binary, right, Cash? Because it's like, here's how it's going to go, in my opinion. If the outstanding share size is the same, and then we have whatever revenue, the natural question is, okay, that's great, but our market capitalization is still this, and it's non-compliant. There has to be a question about that if it isn't already acknowledged right out of the gate by management. Yes,
and I think,
right?
yeah, and I think that's where they do have to say something. If the numbers aren't there to prove the 35 million market cap, they have to make a statement as to a NASDAQ extension of some degree, correct?
Yeah, right. They just have to acknowledge it. Like, what are we going to be delisted? Have you guys met? What was the conversation like? You know, like, my God, just anything, you know.
So what if revenue is still kind of low and then they didn't dilute it all and they just kind of read a generic thing like they did last time? So if we're in that
I think
situation,
they do
gonna
that and then they don't say anything about delisting. The natural inclination is they have been acquired.
yeah, because but then it's gonna be like 50-50. It's like bankruptcy or or
Well, I feel
buyout. Like
like if the market cap isn't there, right, and the outstanding share size hasn't changed, then they have to make a statement as to the Nasdaq meeting, and if there's been extent, they have to talk about the result or the status of it, because the numbers aren't gonna prove anything at that point, right? Don't you agree?
Now let me ask you this, okay? Is it even in the possibility that delisting can occur? Like, could the like could the company have gotten information that from the Nasdaq, hey, you're delisted, and then withheld that until earnings? I don't think so.
No, it'd be immediate.
Right. So if earnings
Yeah.
in 2 weeks and we haven't been delisted yet, then like, well, what the fuck is the uncertainty?
Yeah, why so long?
Like,
Like, how long have we been waiting since it was first, no, what was it, October, November, or?
well, not
November.
just like how so long, but like we're not getting delisted is my interpretation of that. Because all right, if we've gotten the notification that the Nasdaq is within their right to delist us without further notice, and they've set up an intermediary, right, a hall monitor or whatever the fuck they're called, to essentially, make this an easier process if they decide to delist it. And we have earnings in 2 weeks, and it's been 3 months, or at least two, since we've gotten the notice. Is it not reasonable to assume that we haven't been delisted? And then that's just the first question. The second question is why? Sorry, Catherine, what's up?
Okay, I had a train of thought. Um, it makes sense to me why earnings is coming early, really, according to vet. If they've done it in the past in the middle of March, and now we're up a month. I remember when the NASDAQ gave us notice of delisting. I kind of counted on my fingers when 90 days would be, and that would be the end of February.
Okay.
But we're going to do earnings 2 weeks earlier than that. I don't think delisting is on the table.
That's a very good observation. And that's more objective than my information. So that's actually a better point than whatever the fuck I was going on about.
There'd be no point in earnings
90 days from the notice puts us at, end of February, and we're getting an earnings report before then. Yeah, I mean, I can see your line of thought, and then I can see the line of thought that's bearish too. So I don't know.
I'm just figuring, why bother with early earnings report if we're gonna go to the sandbox.
Yeah, I would agree. Now the thing is, though, I think the company has reported in January and March in the past. So I don't know. Maybe it's like not early or late, and it's just kind of like in the middle. Who knows? It's definitely early from all of the projected brokerage earnings dates that came out, right? Because they were all like March or last week of February.
What are they projecting on revenue though, or EPS and everything like that?
I think Scott said it was like 2.4 projected top line, and then the EPS I think is like negative.
Well, that's our numbers though, because we said that. Well, John said that.
Oh, well, let me see what
he said that on the last one, on the last call, kind of like what we project for Q4. So
let me see on
if he was sandbagging 2.4 and we come in at like a 5, I mean, we'll see.
I'm just gonna type in some T2 Biosystems earnings and see if we can get some. This was just the quarterly financials that comes up as Google when I just type it in. So just, I don't know if it's right or not, but September 2023, revenue was 1.47 million. Which was a miss by 59%. And I think that's, was contributory to the stock price going down as much as it did. And that was because
But we lost like 200 million in market cap over missing $1 million.
Yeah. No, I think we lost like 80 million in market cap over missing like $2 million in revenue or some shit.
$2 million. That's a low. $2 million in revenue. That's pathetic. That's pathetic.
How did they announce that last BARDA contract? How did that kind of come about? Or how did they announce that one?
The first BARDA contract when they got it?
Yeah. Or how did Price react to that? I guess not.
Oh yeah, I mean that was years ago, and I would imagine, I can't remember the exact day. I don't even know if BARDA was. I think BARDA was already involved in the company when I invested, so I'm not sure actually.
Just trying to see if that 40 million may be on the table out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, I mean that's something that we really haven't talked about a whole lot as well. I mean, like a reapplication to BARDA to complete the next generation is definitely within the works here. I shouldn't say definitely, but it's within the possibilities of other streamlines of revenue. And yeah, you'd be looking at like in the tens of millions for sure.
So what are we expecting, I guess, in between now and earnings? Anything?
I'm expecting price, honestly, well, all right, well, let's look at technicals. This is where technicals come in. When you get,
that's why I like, could we kind of trace back to that $6.07 range, just because?
Yeah, no, this has definitely exhausted its downside move, in my opinion. Let me pull up the chart and let me look at it. So on the daily chart, right, we closed at 426 today. So we have a inside and honestly a double inside candle. And when I say double inside, I mean that the daily candles have closed within the body or the wick of the previous candle. So if you look at February the 5th, right, it has a range of a high of 471 and a low of 421. Well, yesterday we closed at 443. That's inside that range. Today we closed at 426. That's within that range of 471 and 421, right? So that's just the market basically trading in a range of 420 to 470, and that's 2 days in a row. The more that you trade inside a range, the more consolidation that occurs on a technical perspective, right? There hasn't been a break to the upside or downside. So it typically leads to a breakout in either direction. It could be up or down. And that's where you have to take the context of the history, previous in the last, way back before 2 days ago. So, if we go back to January the 24th, we have a pivot low at 381. We have not even come close. So, I mean, maybe you can consider 420s close to that. But we have not breached that low. And previously, the low was 336. So, technically, we are in a higher low trend line from 336 to 380 to 420. Now, we either break below 420s and then you would be susceptible to to breaching that 380 low, which could then put you into a technical breach to 336 low. But if we do not break that 420, I do believe that on a technical perspective, we should break this previous high of, I think it was $4.99 or $5 this week. So, and there's really not a lot of structure. I mean, you guys saw what happened that day. We broke 5, we went 6, 7, 8. There's really not a lot of structure. And we've been consolidating in the $3 to $5 range for 4 months now, or 3. So this thing is primed. And I don't know if I posted this or not, but I have been buying this stock almost every day, it feels like, or every other day. Not big size, just 25 shares, 50, 75, 100. And I've had several other people, telling me in my DMs, "Hey, I'm adding. I added." Some the other day, told me I just finally ran out of dry powder, right? And it's like this thing has been collecting investors down here, in my opinion. This thing is not breaking new lows, right? Where are the sellers? Besides 450 to 420, I'm talking breaking new lows below 330s. I think with any sort of catalyst, this thing just, I think it is like a rocket launch, but who knows? We're going to know in 2 weeks. So all this is speculative bullshit. Oh shit. I forgot to preface this with, I'm not a financial analyst and this isn't financial advice, and I'm long T2, and do what you want to do. I don't care what you do. Take all of that into consideration when you're listening to this. Anywho, I think this market has been also, guys, what's also very notable to me is the broad market continues to make higher highs, and T2 is just trucking along. And this is in context to Eli Lilly making higher highs today, right? T2's in the biotech realm, right? If all tides are rising, then why isn't this boat lifting?
It's
I wonder.
because there's
About
only 2 million in revenue. That's why.
Well, that's what the market is perceiving. I would agree. I think Mr. Market might be failing to consider what we've all been talking about here for a few months now. Or we're about to get fucking poorer than we already are.
I mean, how could that happen?
Pick up a third job, motherfuckers. You will own nothing and be happy.
I'll have to go back to dancing, I guess. So
Yeah, no, I mean, this is like the reality, guys, right? The market's making highs. We know that retail is fucking eating shit right now. Everybody that I talk to is just getting dicked on in the world, it seems. I don't know. Maybe this is my world and you guys are having a different experience. I hope you guys are having a different experience, but you know, my grandma has colon cancer. My sister just got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. My mom, has dysautonomia with declining function. And I'm just trying to keep everybody together. And my investment is just, it just feels like it's just doing nothing for 3 years. And I'm in the ER last night with my grandma from fucking 6:30. We're having dinner here with my mom and her friends, and my grandma calls, I feel dehydrated and weak. I got to go to the ER. This woman grew up in Barberton. Like, she is the salt of the earth. She's asked to go to the ER twice in her life. She had appendicitis and a bowel obstruction. So you listen to her. So we go over to the house. She could barely walk. She's living by herself. We got to take her to the ER. She's got a 100.4 fever, which is low grade, but it meets 𝗪's criteria. Her heart rate's above 90. It meets 𝗪's criteria. She's breathing at 20 respirators immediate. Meets 𝗪's criteria. So now we're getting blood work. 2 hours later, we see a resident physician who's asking these dumbass questions because she's just out of the gate. And I'm just like, Jesus fuck, get us the attending, please. And I've worked in this ER for 3 years. Just get us the attending. My grandma needs to be admitted. She needs blood cultures. I didn't even say all this. The attending comes back 30 minutes later. Hey, I think we're going to need to keep, this is before she even see the patient. She just saw the vital signs. This is what the resident failed to understand. The attending physician made a disposition based on age, history, vital signs, risk factors. She saw an 80-plus-year-old patient with a history of colon cancer and bowel obstruction presenting with cough, fever, chills, weakness, and shortness of breath with the vital signs of fever, tachycardia, and tachypnea. She didn't even need to see the patient. She decided this patient is being admitted to the hospital and we're getting blood cultures for a sepsis workup. Fantastic attending. You know what the shitty part is? My grandma probably didn't need to be hospitalized. She just needed a liter of fluids. And I won't know if I'm right until tomorrow morning when the blood cultures result. So you fucking tell me, stand there and tell me that T2 Biosystems isn't something that can change lives. When I'm standing in the fucking ER last night with my grandma, who was admitted to the hospital crying because she didn't want to be admitted. She just wanted to get some fluids and to go home. And then she had to stay there. And you know what's fucked up? Now she can get a hospital-acquired pneumonia. Since she is incontinent at times and they might need to cath her, she might get a hospital-acquired catheter-associated UTI. She might then need to be on IV antibiotics for the virus that she presented with. And she might even die in the hospital. That's real life, folks. So sorry to drop that heaviness. I thought it needed to be said. I think that it's appropriate in the context of what this company does. And that's the most personal I'll get. But life is real. This company solves real life problems. They're not some service as a software with a PE of fucking, they're not a burrito making company with a PE of fucking 55 price to earnings. Chipotle up $200 per share, 7% today. Despite them hiring 15,000 or whatever the fuck employees they're going to add to their operation expenses. This is the market. We value Chipotle more than T2 Biosystems. Whatever. It makes you not want to participate. But hopefully my cynicism will be cured. And this company will, honestly, you know, and yeah, I want to get rich. That's the human in me. But you know what would make me even, like, I don't know, I would have the most dopamine in my body, I think, that I've ever had if I could walk into an ER one day and this thing is fucking like being used in triage for my grandma or somebody's grandma. Because I just kept thinking, I literally even whispered to my mom, this is my investment. We would have had a result in 3 to 5 hours. Oh, by the way, the nurse, and I'm not fucking with you here. Actually, she wasn't a nurse. She was a paramedic. And God bless her, you know, they're fucking treating people in there was an aortic dissection next to my grandma last night in triage. I shit you not. I don't even know if the guy survived. I shit you not. That's how inundated these ERs are, dude. You walk into a ER that's by a city, good luck. You might die in the ER. Like, this country is, the healthcare in this country is unfathomable. So anyway, what was I saying? I was saying something about triage and T2 Biosystems, and anyway, anyone can interject. I think you guys just, I think we're all involved in a company that's doing real life things, you know. And it would be a shame, you know, it would be a shame, not just from a financial perspective, but if this thing really can do what it's doing, and the FDA says it does what it does, right? This isn't a pie in the sky thing. This thing is in real life hospitals, you know, with real life patients getting real life results. And it's been 3 years, 4 years going on. And another, wow, I'll have to say 4 years coming on March. Unbelievable. I didn't even think I'd had it in me to keep a stock for 4 years, let alone keep buying it when it's going down. But that's just the conviction I have. I might just be a fucking lunatic. And I'll have to come to terms with that, you know, one day. You know, figuring out like what went wrong, what was wrong in me that I, you know, got this so wrong. But I don't think that's the case, you know. There's just, I'm here with you guys. It'd be one thing if I don't think it's the case, but all you guys who join these calls also don't think that's the case. So that's what keeps me going. So I appreciate you guys. Because I would be fucking lost. I mean, without you guys, I probably would have, I don't know what I have done. I don't know. The darkest period was when this thing was going down and I had nobody to talk to, like 2 years ago. you know, like truly nobody, just the people on StockTwits. And that's a horrible crew. So anyway, I appreciate you guys listening to me droning on hours on hours on hours. I appreciate your input, and I think that we're going to be rewarded here. I think life has been hard for a while for many people. I don't know. I might be projecting that based on recent experiences, but credit card debt's at all-time highs, right? I mean, I talk to people. My mom's boyfriend is about to get laid off from his sales job. It's just like I it just feels like being gaslit. Quote, that was his tweet, I think either today or yesterday or sometime this week. You are being gaslit. This is a billionaire who works with NASA, the government, right? Pretty smart individual, telling us all what we've been saying all along. We're being gaslit. What the Fed is saying, what Janet Yellen is saying, what Joe Biden is saying is not congruent with what you and I are all dealing with on the day-to-day. Right? But it's like my mean reversion thing, right? Like, I feel like life is like 3 standard deviations to the downside from the mean right now. And I was talking with my sister today, and she does a lot of like meditation and astrology and metaphysical stuff, which balances my like hyper cerebral state. And she was just bringing up some just astrology, and she was like, we are in a very, apparently, I don't know the term for it, but apparently we are in like a phase of astrology that is just a very challenging time, and we're about to be approaching a time of very positive change. We'll see, but life is what you think it is. Really, life is your thoughts. And if you think negative thoughts always, then your life is probably going to be pretty negative.
That's right. Think positive.
So that's
I know,
what you got to do.
I know it's easy to say, but you have to.
I agree, Vet. And you're wiser than I, so.
And keep on laughing.
Yeah.
That's the best medicine, I'm telling you right now.
No, I agree, man. Some of the, honest to God, like in the last like few weeks, even my some of my best moments have just been this laughing with some of your guys' commentary,
Broken pipe up on the hill, or
So I'm just like, I definitely appreciate it. But if we all got to think positive, because I do believe that if we all think positive, I mean, affirmations, all these books that I read, like Napoleon Hill's Think Rich, Grow Rich, these books, like, and even like, I don't know, success is a relative term, but Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs, like all these people, like who have perceived success in this world by many, they all have a general tendency toward affirmations. They really do make their inner thoughts their outward reality, and that is something that distinguishes humans from animals. Is that a man or a woman can think of something that does not exist and then go build that. That is something unique to our species. We don't know what that comes from. But from reading historical textbooks, even recent textbooks, there's a general notion that this is the concept of affirmations, right? speaking something into existence. It has a power. So I would ask that, people who, believe in this, that they would remain positive and speak it positively into this life, because I think that we can have a power in that. But that's about as metaphysical I'll get. It is powerful, though. I need to do that more in my own life. I need to bring the practice of like journaling and affirmations and meditation much more central, just to control the chaos. And even just like markets, right? Like if you're actively a trader or an investor or a day trader, these things would definitely help improve your performance, I think. I got whacked today on puts, though. Whacked. Wiggity whacked. I bought the 497 at the monies. Well, they were at the money. It just did not go down. We gapped up, and I thought, okay, well, at least we'll retest like 495, 496.50, right? I figure we'll get a quick retest of 496 low. These, the premium I bought them like 120, 125. I got it to 118, and then it just there was that. I think there was like a 1 minute candle. It was actually, I think the minute I bought it, there was like a $1 $1 1 minute candle on SPY, and the premium just dropped 50% immediately. And it just like, never really recovered. But these are the days. The trending days are the ones that if you're trading 0 DTEs, you're gonna get whacked. So you just got to be careful if you're trading options. But I think what the market is doing and what I'm noticing, I've noticed on StockTwits, I've noticed on Twitter that there's a few people, or maybe actually a lot of people that are like, okay, this is crazy. Like I was looking for people who were going to post their earnings, like their profits today. There wasn't a lot of people posting profits, and it's because I honestly think a lot of people are like either hands off or short the market right now. So I reposted that, my trading mentor made 200 or 400% on that Eli Lilly fucking call option. He's a beast, dude. He's a fucking beast. Like, I am so wired anti what he does that I'm just in awe of what he does. But you know why he's successful? He has been doing this for years. He knows that his methodology works, and then he just trades his plan. Like Eli Lilly pumped to new all-time highs, came back down, I don't know, it was like a 5% drop or whatever, and he bought the dip. And I'm like, you bought the dip right after an all-time high pump? He's like, yeah, dude, the trend's up. My banners all say bullish, daily, weekly, hourly. That came into my cloud. I'm going to buy that. I'm going to buy 2 weeks out. I'm going to buy at the money or slightly out of the money. And what do you have it? Fucking killed it. Now he doesn't, win every one, but he keeps his allocation size consistent. And then his, 200 to 400% winners take care of his, few losers that he has. So I have a lot of respect for him. It's weird that I have so much respect but don't trade his style. I don't know. That I think says something more about me than him. I need to probably get over myself. And instead of thinking that, right? I mean, I've had consistent unsuccess trading a mean reversion option strategy, and Trendy Trader, right? John has had relative success trading with the trend and buying the dips into the EMA cloud. So we'll see. Maybe 2024 is just a year of getting over yourself, Taylor. As a trader, that would be fun to have a profitable trading year.
Take a vacation.
Well, I think
Take the girl and go on a vacation.
You know, it's funny you say that, but I think I'm actually going to take 2 weeks off and go down and visit my best friend who lives in Florida.
Yeah.
He's in like the Fort Myers area. I think I'm going to go down there.
There you go.
Is anyone down that's in these chats? I know you're like a Canadian, my friend.
Well, a few years ago, I was down in Treasure Island around St. Pete's there for
Oh,
the month of March. Yeah, it was like beautiful beaches and restaurants, and everything's walking distance too. That's a really nice area.
yeah, it is. I think I've been down that area one time before. This is Fort Myers area is where I'll be, and I guess the Minnesota Twins have spring training maybe in the next couple weeks, which is like right down the block.
Yeah, that should be starting, pretty soon, yeah.
So I think I'm going to take a couple weeks and just decompress, and 'cause I haven't taken a vacation in fucking forever.
You got to do it.
you know this thing's gonna blow up as soon as you do that, right?
You're going to be laying on the beach and you'll $100 a share.
Dude, if that happens, like
Hey, we'll all come down and party with you.
yeah, I'm flying everybody down to Fort Myers. Oh man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's been said by many people in different lanes that 2024 is the bio year, and I really do think that's true. I mean, you look at the suppression of bio the last couple years. I feel like you want to talk about a trend. I think bio is the trend for 24. Honestly,
I agree with you. Yeah, there and every year, right, that I the active investor, there does seem to be a trend, if you will, or a theme, right? Like last year was like I think the AI theme, and the year before that was like the EV theme, and
Crypto and all
and
that.
before that was crypto and tech, big tech, right? Yeah, exactly. And now again, I think we have like the they call it the Magnificent Seven. Before it was called Fang. I mean, these guys. This is what they do for a living. Come up with fucking acronyms.
Yeah.
They actually do. Like, you ever watch these shows? They all have acronyms. Like, oh, I call it pencil for Pepsi Cola, Enphase, Nvidia, Cleveland Cliffs. You know what I'm saying? It's like Jesus.
Yeah.
well, maybe our catalyst is getting you on vacation. Maybe we need to put a GoFundMe and we all chip in so you
Ship
go
you out.
on vacation, and maybe that's the catalyst that makes this thing.
The day that I accept a GoFundMe from any of you guys to send me on vacation, I need to go fucking pack my bags. No, I luckily am gonna be able to take a little break from work. I was it's been like 6-7 years in clinical, and I don't know if I've said this to you guys, but like I'm considering like a lane shift, and obviously like if T2 does its thing, then life's gonna look a little different in general. But
Is that investing with your family member? Getting in a clinic?
yeah, I think I might pursue something like that, and I think it might come after I have to have a talk with this urgent care job. Like it's just been, I like it, but it's just like it's weird. Like I know I recognize that I'm 30 years old, and many people are working well into their 50s and 60s. So it's like, give me a break, kid. but you know, like 6-7 years working like the ER and oncology and just all these, like, I'm kind of just like worn out from it, and I just like want life to be a little bit lighter, you know. So I kind of want to pursue something that like is more like on that back end of those things, like the entrepreneurial aspect. Yeah, like with my family, maybe starting up like that remote, you know, urgent care or something like that. I was even thinking about going into like medical sales or something. But the beauty of like PA is like, you know, I just got a call yesterday. Hey, do you want to? We have an urgent care job in Pennsylvania for 7 shifts. Do you want it? It's like, if you want to pay for my Pennsylvania license, sure. So there's always work, you know. It's like that's not a that is a blessing that I have in this field, but I think I want to go do something else, but in the same field, you know. I say that I'm gonna end up back in the ER in like another year. Last night, or when I was at the ER with my grandma, I saw one of my coworkers. I almost said his name, but I won't, just for privacy. But he's a nurse practitioner that I worked with freaking back in 2017 through 2020, Barberton ER, and I saw him and I'm like, hey man, he recognized me. I gave him a fist bump, and you know, I walk in and I see patients in the waiting room, and I'm like, some of them have IVs, and I'm like, oh, you guys are getting killed, and he's like, yeah, don't you miss this? And I was like, nope, not one bit. But then that guy had the aortic dissection right next to my grandma, and my heart got like pumping, and I like wanted to consult neurosurgeon. I wanted to ask, you know, my buddy like what they were doing, but obviously HIPAA, you know. So it's like just that there is that adrenaline rush that you always miss. What does everybody do? I mean, Cash, I remember you. Don't you work for Thermo or some shit?
I work for a company that actually I'm in Ohio every so often for corporate, so you might be able to guess which company it's for.
Oh,
But I work on medical and laboratory grade sterilizers and glass washers in laboratories. So basically, like Eli Lilly, I'm going to BD tomorrow. All these big bio companies. I'm like basically in Thermo Fisher. I was there today. Um, yeah. So
that,
yeah. So I basically work on you know, they're sanitizing products, right? For anything that runs labs. So all the glassware, everything they do all these tests in, right? Then they have to put it in a glass washer, and then they got to put it in a sterilizer that basically steam treats it and kills all bacteria so that it's clean to reuse again.
that's interesting because my urgent care group, like the guys who own the private care, they have a sterilizer that they use, and I never looked to see like, you know, what company it was from, but I want.
Is it a is it a big one, like a big door operating, or is it like a counter based
Definitely
model?
counter based.
So it could be steam, but it's probably a VHP, which is vaporized hydrogen
Oh, okay.
peroxide, which is a cold treatment,
Oh,
um, which is super effective. It's actually that's like the largest growing part of some of these companies now because you don't need to use a big operation, right? And it's counter based, and you can use product like that, and you don't have to get it hot. So if it's heat sensitive material or product, right? That's what you need to use.
that's actually really cool that you work on those. How much do those things cost?
Well, the basic ones are probably like 100,000 for the standalones, not the countertop ones, for the steam sterilizers, and they go up to like 3 to 5 million a
Yeah.
piece, where they're literally made in like Finland, and they fly us out there and they build them custom to the customer, and they fly the customer out there, and you go through the factory and they build it specifically to the customer's needs, and then You go through it. They teach you how to run it for the customer, and then you're out there for the week, and then they fly it out in parts, and then they put it together. At the site.
That's incredible to me, because if I'm thinking about opening my own urgent care, $100,000 for one of these suckers.
Yeah, and that's nothing. I mean, medical is so expensive. Like that VHP, which is vaporized hydrogen peroxide, it's a cup that you put in there and it's a peroxide, right? And it vaporizes it in the machine, and that's how it kills bacteria. And it has like a vacuum system. So when it's in packages, it goes through like a pressure and vacuum cycles to pull all the air out,
Right.
right? But the cup is $250 for a little, like a K cup, like it's a little bigger than the K cup in your Keurig, right? And it's only good for 2 weeks. As soon as you puncture it, like it's only good for 2 weeks. So like if you mess it up, it's done. If you don't use it for 2 weeks, it's done. And that's nothing. I mean, everything in medical is extremely expensive.
Yeah, no, what my question would be then is, at what point does it pay for itself? Because the alternative is just getting single use, throw away, disposable.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, these small ones, it's good for like small facilities, right? Like for example, here we have one that's it's a dog veterinarian, and so they just have the countertop one for like sterilizing like tools if they do little surgeries and stuff, small stuff like that. I actually do the zoo, the San Diego Zoo, and they have a small one for utensils, but for people that are making products like these laboratory for FDA, they're literally making $3 to $5 million for processing one run.
Dude, these guys are making
It's
bank.
like literally like one run that takes a couple hours. They're making like millions.
So these are just like basically high capital intensive businesses, but then their margin is probably insane.
And that's and again, we're talking about T2 companies, right? T2 is a small company, but you look at the cash burn and you think, where's all that money going? It's extremely expensive.
R&D.
Eli Lilly and Thermo Fisher, like these people, like, can you imagine the cash burn of how much just for expenses? It's millions, it's thousands and thousands a day, right? And that's not even counting like, people's um paying people to be there. The equipment is a, but so yeah, there has to be a revenue to supply that. And that's why these startup companies, they'll get a grant for 40 million. These facilities they build them, they're brand new, they're amazing, they're beautiful. They've got like
I'm
auditoriums,
sure.
they have like
Yeah.
theaters in there. Like I go in there, they have multiple kitchens with free food for
Oh my
everybody.
god.
They have outdoor like foosball tables and like it's full on like a
That's
Facebook
where I'm
thing. It's
trying to work.
amazing.
Like, what am I doing seeing fucking people draining butt
Yeah.
abscesses?
And what's weird is they'll like just spend, and then they don't make FDA and it literally will close down like
Yeah, it's
the
like
next day.
Theranos, right? Like they literally bought the the real estate next to, what was it Facebook, or was it, I think it was on like the Silicon Drive or whatever. It was like in the neighborhood of all of these, you know, billion-dollar, trillion-dollar companies.
Maybe Apple.
I don't think it was Apple, but it was definitely one of like the Magnificent Seven, I think. But it's like maybe it was Apple. I don't know. But yeah, that's pretty bizarre. That is crazy. Yeah, they get government funding and then they close down years later, and it's like, what the fuck just happened?
Or they hope for a buyout.
Yeah, or
like someone that we know
right, yeah. Who might?
or hoping.
Yeah, you'd be amazed. Yeah, you'd be amazed. These small companies, they're getting bought out all the
Sure.
time. Like I literally will have the account and they're like, oh, we just got bought out. We just merged. Like we have all new like information that needs to be submitted. And you're like, it's like a merry-go-round,
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, that is one thing I'll say for T2 is they do have really good researchers and scientists to win these competitions and get FDA approval on all these things.
And isn't that the most part? Like this is the opposite of Theranos. Like Theranos had the idea, but then they didn't have. I mean, like they did have a researcher, but it just wasn't getting done. This company's like getting the scientific leg, the unsexy stuff, right? The stuff that isn't pulling in revenue initially. But for the people who are kind of nerdy like us, we're like, this is really cool what they're doing, right? Revenue or not, this is pretty fucking cool. And so here we are, getting our shit rocked because everybody just cares about money, And
And the other thing, like when you really break it down, the T2, the cost of this machine, it's really nothing. It's peanuts,
well, when you're
to
telling
these
me a
companies.
sterilizer is like, whatever that range was, I'm thinking like T2's like 250. What the fuck?
It's
So-
250,000 for the machine. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, right, isn't it? Or something around.
I thought Scott said it was
I thought they said
75,000,
it was
like 100.
75,000.
Oh shit, maybe it's 75.
Yeah, I think it's around 100.
But even that's like greater. My point. It's like, holy shit, you have a diagnostic for $100K, which is similar to a sterilizer. Like what?
So do you think a hospital would just need one of these, or do you think they would order multiple?
No. So all right. So if standard of care happens, you're talking, all right, in that ER last night, just while I was there in the 4 hours, they probably grabbed that I saw at least 4 sets of blood cultures on 4 different patients, just in the 3 hours that I was in the ER. So they're going to need multiple machines because what's the throughput on this? It's like 6?
I think it's 7.
7?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that means 7 tubes of whole blood, right, can essentially go in the machine, and over the course of 3 to 5 hours, you'll get 7 different results for those different patients. So, I would imagine at least, I don't know, at least a couple to start with. I think 2. Because they're not just going to need it for the ER. They're going to need it for the ICE. Well, I mean, I understand it's going to go to the lab, but they're going to be using it not just from the ER. They're going to be using it from ER patients, oncology patients, ICU patients, surgical patients, and probably even general floor patients. So you're looking at I mean, I don't know, in a lab setting, like how many diagnostics do they usually buy?
I think it would have to be a ratio to patients, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Have to be?
totally, because it just would be a ratio to, I mean, they could get smart with it and do sepsis patients, but if that would be silly because they're probably missing sepsis patients now. So it would be smarter for them to do a ratio of general patients, which, oh man, I should pull up when I got hired at Akron, they gave me like the census of how many patients they saw in the ER. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. So SUMA Akron City ER census. Here we go. 100,000 square foot emergency department. This is the one that I used to work in. 76 beds, 10 triage rooms, 9,100 square foot ambulance bay. I want to see how many patients they see. Come on. I know you have that information. Wow. With more than 60 patients admitted to the hospital through the ED each day. That's 60 each day. That's one hospital.
Yeah, and I feel like you're more likely to do blood tests when it only takes 3 hours.
Oh yeah,
to
exactly. There's like blood cultures are like poo-pooed. Like, all right, this was the exact response of the paramedic when she came to the computer, and I had already knew that the attending physician ordered blood cultures, but she didn't yet, and I was like, oh boy, my grandma is not going to be an easy stick here. And she goes up to the computer, logs in, and she's like, oh, they ordered blood cultures. And that is the same reaction that you're going to get from basically anybody who gets that order, because they're a bitch to get. Like, you're trying to get this dehydrated, patients, and this is a huge, like, vial of blood that they're getting, not just a little, red top tube, with like 3 milliliters. They're getting double, triple that amount. And they also have to get it from each freaking arm. You have to get it from 2 different sites. So it's just terrible for the patients to go under. And it would just be amazing if it could just be one stick. And so what I'm saying is the physicians understand this. And I'm not saying it's right, but I guarantee you there's been decisions made based on, I don't want to upset this nurse, rather than what is best for the patient. I know that you probably all cringe at that, and you should, but this is an imperfect world that we live in, and physicians are humans. So there's a large, I think you're exactly right. The increase in orders for this diagnostic, you should see, because it's just easier to obtain. It's non-invasive. Or I should say it's less invasive than blood cultures, since you're still sticking them. Yeah, no, the recurring revenue potential is just ridiculous. Which then increases your margins, and their margins probably suck right now because their manufacturing and distribution is probably just shitty. They don't have any scale to even get any margin, right? Like, doesn't margin come with scale? I don't know. I'm not a business person. Isn't that like the whole thing? Like, the idea is like you get bulk orders and it's a lot cheaper.
Well, yeah, the more volume, the better. Like, that's what you want, volume, revenue, right?
Yep. Volume.
Generate that revenue.
And then what I'm thinking is, like, you increase the volume and the revenue, and hopefully you can maybe get some of the benefits of, scale or whatever it is. All right. Well, have I exhausted? Do we have anything fresh?
Well, I had a quick question. When do you
Yeah.
think they'll announce if there'll be a phase 3 or not for the LymeX?
Well, I think they definitely do have to announce it, because they straight up said that they have funding for it, right?
Yeah, but it was weird because they said they had funding for it, but they said it was still up in the air whether they were gonna do it or not.
Yeah,
so.
it wasn't very definitive verbiage, but they said they had funding. You're right.
But that's what's crazy too is so their quarterly revenue is supposed to be 2.4 million. Like, that one competition would be an entire quarter's revenue if they won.
Yeah, you're correct. And that's why it's weird that price is down 4% week over week despite that. That's why it's just so priced for bankruptcy that it doesn't matter what catalyst, unless it's going to get us the hump over bankruptcy, then 265,000 is going to the executives. That's how it's being priced, I would imagine they'd have to announce the LymeX phase 3. I mean, if not this month, next month, right? Like, what are they going to wait for?
And that's what I was kind of wondering is what are the conditions that they are awarding? Is it results? Because the fact that there's a couple universities in there, where are they going to go with that?
Yeah, that's what's weird to me too.
Yeah, I would agree. And wasn't there just
But
two?
but that's what's kind of interesting too, though, is there's 3 winners, okay? And who are the 3 actual companies? There are only 3 in 2 universities, so maybe just the 3 companies would move forward.
You would think.
Yeah, that what was the other one? MetaBind or
It
something?
was bio
I can't think
like
of it.
helix or helix something.
HelaBind.
Helix
HelixBind.
Bind, yeah. And Blue
Did
Arc.
you? Yeah, Taylor, did you get a chance to look at that machine? Because they're also making a sepsis one. I was curious as to your take, and you probably haven't. I did send it to you. I don't know how hard that is to find, but
Oh, I can
I was just
take a look.
curious as to, because they're in Massachusetts also. It's very interesting how these companies that are very similar that are right there in Massachusetts, it seems.
Are they private companies or they trade publicly?
Yeah. The other 2 are
They're
private.
private.
They're private?
With tiny employee counts.
Okay.
Like 5 to 10. I'm looking up Blue Arch right now.
Yeah, I don't know how these guys survive with $2 million a quarter, like, or $1.5 million a quarter of revenue. I don't understand it. Being a bean counter, I just don't get that. How they can survive.
I think that, yeah, I think that
It's
I was gonna say
mind-boggling.
the bind. I think they got awarded like 3 million. That's all the revenue or something.
Yeah, that's.
Is it called Blue Arc Biosciences? Is that it?
Yeah.
All right. Proud to be a recipient of the LymeX Phase 1 prize. This website looks like it was put together by me. Like a generic thing. Let me.
Oh, it's that nice?
Yeah, no. They have a home button and a contact us button. The home button takes you nowhere because you're at home and there's no other links.
Jeez.
I can't even look at this. How do you? It says biosensors. Check back later.
Out for lunch.
I need to take a screenshot of this. Wait, Cash, have you seen, like, where can you see their diagnostic? I don't even see it. I can't even click on anything.
See, with those private companies too, you don't know what kind of revenue they're generating, if any, or.
Can I take a screenshot of this and put it in the chat? You guys are going to laugh at this.
I just sent you a message, Taylor, for the Helix Bind machine.
Okay.
That looks decent.
All right. Well, Helix Bind is, I need to do their website, but apparently Blue Arch is lacking here.
Yeah. Helix Bind seems a little bit more legit than the other company.
That's like the only one, and it's funny that they're right there in Massachusetts also.
Helix Bind. All right, let's take a look. Oh, this machine looks pretty slick. It looks like the Theranos machine. These machines all look similar. All right, developing innovative diagnostic platform. Bloodstream infections. Results in 4 hours. Huh. All right, let's click on the technology. So, all right, tests incorporate multiple proprietary technologies, all of which are embedded on. Okay. It's really vague. Helix Bind test delivers species-level identification across a broad menu of 20 plus pathogens. That's pretty good. With sensitivity down to a few cells per milliliter, which is similar to T2, I believe. From a small blood within a few hours. 3 milliliter. The fuck? How is this any different than T2's like diagnostic? What's going on here?
Take them out.
No,
T2.
really. No, really. Like this. they
I'm out.
have, they even have a similar like infographic, like with like the 1 minute setup, the 4 hours to resolve it. Like I've seen that on T2.
That's kind of why I wanted your take on that. And then also if it was descript on if it was PCR based or
That's what
whatnot.
I'm trying to find next, is the actual technology behind this. Like it says several proprietary, but I need to figure out like what the hell they're actually using. All right, so
Do they have any clinical trials, or like what's their sensitivity and specificity on their product? Because I didn't see them list that anywhere.
I don't have any like metrics. Yeah, there's not any metrics. So how 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧 is changing care. Blood is perhaps the most complicated clinical specimen. Yeah, we know that. Presence of compounds which inhibit other tests, yada yada. All right, sample preparation is critical, and off-the-shelf methods were not designed and are not appropriate to address the complexity of bloodstream infections. 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧's proprietary methods, covered by multiple patents, address the myriad of challenges presented by bloodstream infections. Wow, they like to be, they're very verbose without saying anything. All right, 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧 tests can assay multiple milliliters of blood in a single test, maximizing sensitivity. Okay, but what is the sensitivity? Remove cell-free microbial DNA that are not associated with an active infection. Yield pure high molecular weight microbial genetic material, free of any downstream inhibitors. Huh, okay. I kind of understand what they're talking about there. Bloodstream infections are hard to identify and treat because there are many different microorganisms, some of which are challenging to differentiate, and many of which should be treated differently. The ability to detect and identify microorganisms is important. 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗖𝗧 has developed a patented method. Utilizes artificial, all right, here we go. 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗖𝗧 has developed a patented method that utilizes artificial nucleic acids rather than DNA, which enables all 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗖𝗧 tests to incorporate a comprehensive of 20, a menu of 20 of the most common and deadly bacteria and fungi in a single test, provide sufficient species level detail to guide treatment. This is all super vague. It sounds like they're a copycat company of like T2. I don't know how long they've been.
I mean, this literally sounds like Theranos, right? Like they talk the big game, but they have nothing to back it. Right?
Is it funny that I literally said this looks like the Theranos machine when I first came across the website?
But their machine obviously does work because they won phase 2, so it's not like it's.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's like doing something. This is weird though. I don't see. All right, news. Just has the February, phase 2 winner. December 2023 has a patent.
So essentially, I think is what we're saying here is that it's hard to think that T2 isn't one of the winners. Like that's almost impossible at this rate,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. These companies like are, if you want to call them competitive, they're definitely behind.
Yeah, and we're one of, so there are 50 companies that started at this competition, and we're one of the 5 remaining. So to say we're one of the top 5 already in Lyme diagnostics, like,
yeah,
it's
for
pretty.
price to be down 4%, we know the size of the Lyme diagnostic industry, right? I mean, isn't there studies showing like anywhere from 1 to 3 billion or something like that? And I think that's all encompassing diagnostic therapeutics, but take a chunk of that, put it to our market cap, Yeah, I agree with you, Scott. It's mind boggling. Lyme has always been like the silent, I don't know, the opposite of the black swan, right? It's like the white swan or the regular swan. So December 2023, they got an award of $6 million of non-dilutive funding to advance the company's rapid diagnostic platform, is what it's called, RAPID. I don't know what that really stands for. Fluidic Systems, they did a patent in February of last year.
Did they do anything with BARDA?
That's what I'm looking for. Let's see here. In August, they issued a patent for methods for ultra-sensitive direct detection of microorganisms, including Borrelia. $9 million in dilutive funding in December of 2022 from the NIH. Phase 1 winner in November 2022. Another patent in August 2022. Japanese Patent Office. Is this a Japanese company? The China National Intellectual Property Administration issues Helix bind patent number. Is this an Asian company?
I mean, it says it's based in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Why are they needing China National Intellectual Property Administration? Why are they getting patents from them? It's weird. The fuck? FDA grants Helix bind breakthrough device designation for rapid sepsis test, August 2020. Okay. Where's the FDA approval? 3 years later. Do they even have an FDA approved product?
I don't think so.
I don't think so
Yeah,
either.
so guys, this, like, you know, this is kind of like highlighting how fucking hard whatever T2 is doing is doing. Like, this is not easy shit. You see other people out here trying to do it. This company, I don't know. I'm just starting to dive into it, but on just a surface level, they were awarded a breakthrough designation for a sepsis test 3 years ago, and there's no commercialized product. What is that?
And not to forget, that this Lyme contest started with 40 plus companies too.
Right.
It's not just like a few no-namers.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's just T2 really is just like an underdog, and it's kind of bullshit. I really haven't seen in the market a company that just has been as shit on from a performance, stock price performance in the last 3 years, despite how positive their pipeline advancement has been. I don't know. Mind-boggling. We'll have our answers soon, maybe when I'm vacationing in Florida.
Do you think T2 dives into any other sectors this year? Like adds to their pipeline?
I think it would be cool if out of nowhere they brought the hemostat panel back.
Yeah. If they just had that shelf to bring out.
I think that would be fucking G unit. Like, really, that would be an awesome move. Because we know that coagulopathies have been correlated with COVID, no? So there's no shortage of demand for blood tests that are able to detect.
For that, they just have to do FDA approval, right? Like,
man, I don't even know. Wasn't it already FDA approved? Wasn't it commercialized, or was it?
No, they never submitted it for FDA approval.
Was it lab
like
test only or something?
Yeah. Like, I think the plan was to submit it for FDA approval, and then they just never did.
And they
that
the
guy,
trials like done for it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
I don't know.
Yeah, you would certainly wonder why not. I don't know, man. I'm wondering if there's not going to be a T2 later in 2024. You know what I'm saying? Like from a buyout perspective, like, you know, they're probably if they are in active negotiations and this thing gets acquired in the next quarter, then we're going to have to figure out what the acquiring company is going to do with the portfolio. And you bet, I don't know if I would do it right away, but whatever company acquires T2, I mean, yeah, that's going in my 401k for sure. Definitely not all of it, though.
So
We've learned our lesson on that one.
So if T2 wins phase 3, what value would you say that would bring in a buyout?
Dude, all right. Whatever company's trying to acquire T2 is like flirting with hot water right now, because exactly what you're alluding to. I mean, it's one thing to put a price tag on next gen for sepsis and resistance, and well, just for sepsis. It's one thing to put a price tag for biothreat. It's an entirely different thing to put a price tag on Lyme. I mean, Lyme by itself is a $1 billion industry, diagnostic industry, therapeutic industry. 1 to 3, I think, was like the last research in the industry. And it's probably, we know that it's underdiagnosed, which means that it's probably like understated. So the valuation on the company, once you, all right, if phase 3 occurs, which is all geared towards FDA submission, and if this company is able to find a way to just skeet by the next, 6 to 9 months and can survive on whatever it is, whether it's dilution or whatever, incoming revenue streamlines from biothreat, increased conversion rates of their sepsis panels, with their resistance panel. There's certainly different ways that this company can persist for the next year. It's going to be hard, but if it can, and you get an FDA submission for Lyme, it's like the buyer's going to have to come in with not just $1 billion price tag, but probably a multiple of that, whether it be 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know. But what's crazy is, 1 billion to 2 billion, you think to yourself, oh, that's not big of a difference. But for us, right, 1 billion is a whole lot. If you want to add another billion, right, I mean, that's life-changing for a lot of people. Whereas for the acquirer, I mean, it's like peas, it's a rounding error. So that's why, it's like, I don't think this company can just persist much longer without being acquired. What are the, like, what are these companies doing? Are they really about to just let T2 go to market with Lyme? I mean, hey, if they want to, whatever. You're not going to put anyone out of business because of Lyme. But it's like it's not Lyme, right? Like, it's now all of a sudden they have a shit ton of revenue. They're self-sufficient. Now they're their own $1 billion company. And now they can dedicate that to their next generation, which can come after your sepsis panels. Like, Dana here, are you really cool with that? Thermo, are you really cool with that? I wouldn't be cool with that if I were the CEO or any sort of C-suite manager or executive, I mean. But I'm just a Joe Schmo, PA that works in an urgent care, I don't know a whole lot when it comes to that stuff. So is that where you're getting at, Scott? Like, is the valuation's going to go astronomical if Lyme goes commercial?
Yeah, well, I was just kind of curious, just basically, if they win phase 3, that basically means they got FDA approval. I mean, even though it's not FDA approved, like, was the FDA going to turn down the winner of the LymeX competition that's been judged by all these super intelligent people? Like,
Exactly. And not just that. Okay, it's one thing to have an FDA commercialized product like BioThreat, but there might not be demand for a product that's just FDA commercialized. But we know that there's demand, and we know that not only like they beat out their competitors already. Like this
yeah.
competition literally
Well,
telling you who has the best.
well, and isn't this competition basically to fund to get the product out there? What company left has the capacity to even get the product to market other than T2?
Right. Yeah. No, this could this in my opinion is like a, you know, what is it? Stephen Alexander or Alexandra Cohen.
Alexander, yeah.
Stephen Alexandra Cohen, right? Like I think that's a billionaire couple. I I believe that what would be the purpose of hosting this competition other than getting a commercialized product out to to diagnose Lyme? Yeah, I know this is a speculation of mine, but I imagine maybe somebody in their lives has been touched by Lyme that maybe spurred them to host this, or maybe it was completely random. I don't know. But it's like a billionaire. Isn't Steve Cohen like a hedge fund manager?
Yeah, he's a hedge fund manager.
Okay, guys. Okay.
Owns the Mets.
Okay. Owns the Mets, hedge fund manager, hosting a LymeX competition, and it just doesn't matter who wins. It's nothing. It's a nothing burger. Give me a break. That's crazy. That's ludicrous. I think
That's why I don't
understand
why there wouldn't be a phase 3, because like $7 million is nothing to him. Like, like you might as well do the phase 3.
Yeah, you've come this far. Like, let's get down to the nitty gritty and get a commercialized product out there. Which, I mean, that's always muddied the waters, right? It's like, is this company? Because if that's true, if a phase 3 goes through, we don't know how long it would be, but didn't phase 2 already talk about like they've already done basically the legwork for like the clinical trials, the patients, like the methodology, basically the whole experiment, and now they're getting prepared for an FDA submission? Or are they doing more trials? Like, I don't know. I feel like the trial part is over.
Yeah, I really don't really understand what the phase 3 is, because I feel like that's basically just the FDA submittal. I don't know.
Yeah, and then it's like the FDA chooses which one to, or there's going to be multiple winners or something. That's odd. Yeah, I agree. That's really weird. But I mean, I do think like a 6 to 9 month timeline is reasonable if phase 3 occurs within 1 to 2 months and leads to an FDA submission.
And that's right around when resistance should hopefully be approved as well.
So that would put us at Q2, Q3 of this year. God, please, someone just buy us. Just buy us right now. I can't wait another 6 to 9 months.
Can they survive that long, though?
Well, that's the thing, I mean, we're
I don't know.
ahead of ourselves, We'll definitely know an answer to that next Thursday, right? We're gonna we'll know the cash position. There's gonna be a fun space call, Maybe it won't be fun. I think it'll be a good one. We'll know the cash position of the company. We'll have we'll have an idea of runway. Dilution tracker will be more accurate. We'll know if we've been diluted. We'll know our equity position. And then hopefully we'll have some answers to some of these fucking questions that we're, you know, talking about for 4 hours.
Is there a Q&A too, or after it? You know?
Yes.
There is a Q&A? Okay. Which, I'm sure he picks and chooses who's going to ask him questions and what the questions are.
Well, it said there's going to be a, you know, a live thing, but it didn't mention specifically question. I mean, they could just do the, you know, a cut and dry version, right? Just like last
Yeah, with
time, if they're
those
under.
two schmoes there, yeah.
It was read the transcript, you know, stick to the script, buddy. Stick to the script.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I was kind of skimming some of the patents on Helix bind just to get an idea what they're doing and how they're doing it, and it looks to me like it's an optimized PCR method where the optimization seems to be with the kind of probe they're using, which is a artificial probe. They're calling and it just means DNA invading whatever. Let me see if I can get the yeah, DNA invading artificial nucleic acid. But I think so they're using that, and which might, I don't know how proprietary that part is, but it looks like they go into a lot of detail about the incubation thermocycling regimens that with very precise temperatures. So it gives me the impression that they've optimized the PCR method, the thermal cycling steps. And then they mentioned some sort of bivalent salt they're using, which may or may not be unique for them. But the key thing that I homed in on is that their method of detecting pathogens seems to be all about getting the eukaryotic cells out of the way for the pathogens to be detected. So I don't know if that makes sense or not. The eukaryotic cells would be like human mammalian cells, but bacteria are not eukaryotic. So anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it seems like there's a lot of steps, it's kind of complicated that they have to go kind of through a several step process. One step to knock out eukaryotic DNA in the sample, and then home in on the prokaryotic bacterial DNA.
It seems like they're complicating things.
Yes, it's not simple and elegant like T2 seems to be, right?
Right, like you're a specialist in your field, and like you can dive into that stuff. Which, by the way, thank you for that. That's invaluable.
No, not a problem. I'm just curious. You guys led me to it. Really got me thinking about it.
No, it's like I saw you in the chat, and I was like, I hate calling people out because I know people just want to come in and listen sometimes. But I was like, I hope Bio is taking a look at this because he's gonna know these patents for sure.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's really new, but I think their Diana probe, I don't know how proprietary that is. I mean, it looks like they've got a patent on the overall process.
Well, I'll say this, like, it's just, it's that keep it simple, stupid, and like the fact that I was able to approach T2, get on the website, watch a video, and understand their proprietary tech. Yes, I have a medical background, but no, I'm not a laboratory, I don't have like a lab background.
Right.
Or a microbiology background besides taking it in undergrad. Like, I still got it. And this, even with you describing, I'm like, I know what prokaryotic and eukaryotic are, but everything else is probably way over my head. And it's like, if I can't understand the technology, it could be I'm just stupid.
No.
Or it could be like too complicated for no reason. You know, it's like,
Well, it's almost like with Helix Bind, they have to clear cut trees to find a specific tree or something, you know, whereas
right.
T2 just goes right to it. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't need to do any
Un-
clear cutting, you know.
it unravels like the DNA, and then it identifies the specimen.
Yeah. Well, and then yeah, because it involves you know, breaking up the cells.
Right.
But what you have, if you break up every cell in a blood sample, then you've got this soup of DNA, and the fact that they have to have the eukaryotic DNA cleared away as their initial step, and then in order for them to home in on the pathogen
Right. This is the
DNA.
MR, right?
What now?
This would be like the beauty of magnetic resonance, right? Because it kind of makes that whole process a little bit more simple, maybe.
Oh, yeah, a lot more simple. Yeah.
Yeah, because if I'm thinking of it from a macro perspective, right? Like I've always thought of T2's nuclear magnetic resonance as like a mini MRI for blood.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah. So, and if that's true, then I mean, you know, I've interpreted many MRIs uh, and read many MRIs and seen the results, and it's, you know, it's intuitive. Like, you know, you can see it; it's physically there. You know how it works, and they're applying those principles to blood. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you know, really T2 is kind of like a magnetic tagging, you
Right, right.
know, magnetic tagging of the target pathogen DNA, which is very elegant. It's a one step, well, you know, quote unquote one step versus the two-step approach of clearing out eukaryotic DNA and then homing in on pathogen DNA. Yeah, Helix Bind just reads more complicated
And I,
that way.
the more complex the steps, or even the more number of steps, I would imagine might affect your sensitivity.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah. Yep. You're right. And
And contamination, you
Right,
know, opportunities.
yep.
right.
Oh yeah. Well, and also what I found curious, I mean, they are really optimizing the PCR method because there's one stage where there's a gas that's used instead of fluid, and I'm like, wow,
Holy
you know,
smokes. They're like
yeah,
they're like
I'm like,
leveraging PCR out to its max like ability.
yeah. So you've got two, you know, you've got liquid state, gaseous state things going on. Then you've got these different targetings of different things to separate out to get to the target pathogen. It's just more complicated. I mean, it seems more complicated. I mean, there's yeah, you know, it's kind of like Occam's razor. You know, the most simple way of doing something is probably the best. I'm paraphrasing that extremely.
Could you, could
Yeah.
you imagine being a judge for this competition? You like watch Helix Bind, and then you go to T2, and you're like, so how does your machine work? Well, you just take the blood and you put it in the.
Right.
Yeah, mine is coming in with their like, you know, 70 slide PowerPoint of how their proprietary info works, and T2's like, oh, you just stick the blood in there. Tomorrow.
And I'm not saying T2 doesn't have thermal cycling going on. I actually have, from what I've read from T2, I'm going to go back through their patents. I really haven't read them in the detail. Well, I haven't read them in the sense that, or like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I've got something to compare now to T2 as far as how they're doing their PCR. Before I was just blowing through the patent, skimming just to see what the technology really boiled down to. But you know, these patents on the Helix bind seem very, very in the weeds on the specific thermocycling, incubation, times and temperatures of the PCR. I mean, to me, their patents read like I don't know if you've ever browsed through Beyond Meat and their patent on how they make Beyond Meat, but they're very specific about the pH and temperatures and all sorts of stuff. Very very exacting, and that's what Helix Bind seems to really read like, in almost a chemical formulaic procedural way, you know.
Right.
Whereas T2s, that didn't, you know, the bit of reading I've been doing on T2's patents, I didn't remember seeing that level of information on the PCR stuff. But then again, when I read these patents, I just breeze through them, you know.
Sure, sure.
I glom over them, so yeah, I'm sure I've missed something somewhere, but that's just my, my take, my quick
No,
take. Just
I think that's actually really helpful because I mean, I was like going through the website and I'm like, I don't know what the hell these guys do. So I think that's really helpful. And it's just highlighting. It almost sucks. The more we highlight how good it is, it's just the more painful it is how we're just like sitting down here, you know. It's like,
oh yeah, well, the important thing is that the end user kind of understands it. I mean, you know, T2 seems very robust, and the trays they're using are very similar to what T2 is using. Um, these little trays or panels, I guess. I
yeah,
call them trays.
the
The blood panel.
the hardware.
Yeah, so whoever invented the little panels is probably going to do really well because everybody
Yeah,
seems to be using some variation of that.
there's a gold rush of microfluidics, and the people making out are those selling the panels.
Right, right.
Instead of
I'm
the
just
shovel.
I'm just fascinated about microfluidics that can use two phases of a gaseous phase and a liquid phase. That's I'm not going to pretend like I know everything about everything on this stuff because my experience begins and ends in the 90s and then whatever I've kept up with over the decades. But
Well, the
I mean,
the beautiful part of it is like, I mean, you definitely have a specialized knowledge, but when it comes to real life applicability, like as long as it translates to sensitivity, specificity, time,
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
it's all gravy, baby,
exactly. Because
And
if something's more complicated, like in a chemical sense, in chemistry, there's always the theoretical yield versus the yield you get in the real world. And that's kind of the situation here, which leads to your sensitivity.
well,
Um,
doesn't it tie back to how like Elon is almost revolutionizing the car, right? Like getting down the manufactured parts to like nothing.
yep, scaling up, and like you guys were talking about earlier, scaling up, and he was able to do in a very short time. I mean, with also advancements like inventing stuff along the way.
Yeah, and it feels like that's what T2's doing is like they're kind of dumbing down the sepsis diagnostic, uh, you know, almost space, industry, whatever you want to call it. And unfortunately, they haven't been able to like monetize it like, Elon monetized the Model 3 or whatever.
Oh yeah,
But it's like it feels like they are, maybe dumbing down is the wrong word, but simplifying the process, and expediting the process is probably the better.
yeah, and you've got medical professionals that aren't molecular biologists. I mean, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
So you know,
you need it
there's
all
a different.
for them to understand it, because like if it's over their head, they're like, oh, they probably.
Well, like doctors, they're the applied part of science, medicine, is
Right.
part science, part art, but and you've got to know a lot about many things versus these molecular biology PhDs that know a lot about only a couple of things. It's like, and what they know really well. But I'm hoping that there's a bridge there that can, T2 is able to communicate what this does, how it does it, and in order to sell these things. I mean, the thing working against T2, obviously, probably the cost because it's significant.
Right.
But is it that costly? I don't know. It seems kind of reasonable to me for what it does.
Yeah.
But then, it's something that a hospital has got to approve and all the hoops and then the legal aspects of, of being bold enough to start inching away from the petri dish way of doing cultures that it's been done since the late 1800s this way.
Right.
To so it almost takes like a bold hospital, like almost like a cutting edge a research type hospital environment to be adopted in. And like the other day I was reading about some hospital that was newly built and they're getting all the state of the art molecular diagnostics, and I thought, well, this is the kind of hospital T2 would belong in, as a early acceptance, because once the higher end cutting edge hospitals buy into this, then it'll filter down to everybody else over time. But I'm just thinking out loud here. It's
Oh no, you're good, man. I agree with everything you're saying. This
yeah,
is so in the R&D stage. I think it goes back to what Scott has always said is like he's wondered like, is this just a R&D company that was just meant for R&D and it was always going to be bought out by who, it's just like you do the legwork. If it works, great, we'll buy you. If it doesn't, we'll buy the next person who does make it work,
yeah. Like, was this somebody's pet project? I mean, I guess all these things start out as someone's pet project, but I mean, they've had their I mean, I don't know when they made their prototype, but it was, I don't know, 10 years ago or however long it's been
Yeah,
when they,
I actually, when you said pet project, for some reason, I just was thinking back to that Stephen Alexander Cohen Foundation with the LymeX, and I was thinking to myself, like, back to that 2.5 million volume node. I wonder if that was maybe somebody getting leaked information about who won phase 2. Totally speculative, but
oh, yeah.
I was just like,
Well,
I'm like thinking of, okay, the LymeX really is this competition of who has the best, Lyme diagnostic, but really it kind of translates to a little bit more than Lyme if you understand the
oh, yeah.
which we all do. So it's like, was it
Well, if
what
it wasn't, if
Lyme?
it wouldn't
What
have been,
and the person who set up the competition is a hedge fund manager.
oh,
You know
right.
what I'm saying? It's like, man, this really does seem like a T-ball setup.
Well, it sounds like someone that's been affected somehow, either him or his family.
Right.
Yeah. It might be personal, but I can't help but think that these competitions are kind of like a hunger game type of exercise. It's like, like have these things go head to head. I mean, for me, it's kind of exciting because it's like a science fair project meets battle bots or something where this technology is competing against each other. But then again, it seems like a game too. It's like, yeah, I don't
What
know. I
I
mean,
don't what I don't understand is how can a hedge fund manager be involved in the clinical aspect of multiple companies? Like,
I think what he
don't
did is,
don't they have
didn't he?
insider information? Like, all right, don't they know that their judges are gonna announce the winner? They could preload the stock that wins. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Well, I mean, didn't he just give the funding to the government agency, not DHS, but
But,
Department of Health?
but we're the
To,
only publicly traded company, so it'd just be us.
Right.
oh, that's a good point too.
Well, I mean, hedge fund managers can. I mean, I guess they could take private deals and stuff, but I think they mostly trade public equity.
Yeah.
Right, because doesn't venture capital deal with more like private equity stuff? I mean,
Yeah, that's more venture angel
like hedge
investing stuff.
managers, they dabble mostly on like publicly traded securities and stuff.
But I mean, hedge funds,
So,
they
like, if that's true, then like, who are you gonna buy out of the group that's here? I think T2's the only publicly, like you said, Scott.
Oh, that's a good point, actually.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you got 5 winners, only one of them you can actually allocate any capital to and realize a profit. Which one are you gonna do?
Well, there's only one that has multiple FDA clearances, and now
Yeah.
they're on track to win this damn thing. It's like, how many more proofs of concept tests do you need?
That's why we all feel so crazy, because it's like we can all recognize this from months and miles away. Why is it that the rest of the market has failed to recognize, as evidenced by a persistently low share price?
Exactly. Well, did you see T2 Biosystems X account today? Because they made a good point that you know there is no FDA approved or cleared way of testing for Lyme, which I think we already had talked about that within these spaces. But I'm glad they got that message out, right? Like I posted it to my I retweeted it.
Oh yeah, I'll repost it right now too. It is a good message.
Because that is a great message, because if it wouldn't have been for your space that one night where you talked about what it's like to test for Lyme, none of us would have had, well, me speaking for myself, I would have never had a clue how complicated and,
Yeah, stupid pathway. Yeah.
oh my gosh, all the testing and
All the testing for the CDC to be like, just put them on 2 weeks of antibiotics if you think it's Lyme.
right.
Well,
All the testing for them to be like, just fucking make a gut decision.
what I
I mean,
almost think is like I think the big boys kind of got burnt back in 2016, and then retail kind of got burnt this past year. So it's kind of like both sides aren't touching this now.
Nobody's touching this bastard child. Yeah,
anything that
right
involves
there.
blood, anything that involves blood tests have the taint of Theranos, I guess. I don't know.
No, I mean, we joke about that, but I think there is a very real aspect to Theranos tainting this entire fucking space.
But that is what's crazy about this company is like 2016, they were literally saying the exact same things that we're saying now. Like the articles are the same. Like we're just further along in the pipeline now.
Exactly.
I mean, T2, I mean, they're not claiming a drop. They're claiming, a vial, for,
they're more reasonable, and they also have evidence that their technology is legit. I think the shitty part is that in the context of the whole market, since 2016, you didn't really have to seek out crazy risk. You could have bought the broad market and made over 100%. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
there really was no institutional reason for money to go seeking a T2 Biosystems, because they could have put it in Nvidia, which had tangible revenue right there and made a killing. And they could have put it in Meta when it dropped 80%, right? and they could have put it in Netflix when it dropped 50 or 60%. Like, there has been outsized return in comparison to the risk for, it's been years now. The market has been on easy mode for institutional investors. For retail, not so much. But I mean, literally, if you're an institutional investor and you were buying anything over the last 3 months, you've made money. As long as it wasn't T2 Biosystems. So I shouldn't say easy mode. Like, you know, I understand it's difficult, but what I'm saying is it feels like everything in the market's going up. Why would, you know, an investor that can make 50% on a lower risk security, you know, allocate that money to something as uncertain as T2? Now, obviously, I think what's going to be important is, this is kind of why I brought up the divergence in the broad market and T2. Broad market's making all-time highs. T2 is close to its all-time lows. There's a divergence there, right? And so as the market starts to turn over, which it will, it always does, it goes up and down, right? The market will turn over. It will go through a short period of a little downtrend, right? I don't know how long it'll persist. Maybe it turns into a credit bubble collapse and, you know, SPY loses 25, 30, 50%. I don't know. All I know is that if and when that happens, because there will be a credit bubble collapse, I just don't know when it will be. If and when that happens, there's going to be money that needs to seek a place to stay, right? And a lot of it's going to go into like safe haven shit and not very risky stuff. But what I'm saying is, when you've exhausted all these securities that are at all-time highs, where do you go? And that's what Cash was saying. Like, this is the idea of market rotation, right? You've exhausted a certain you know, cyclical industry, right? Whether it's value like Dow Jones, or tech like Qs, you know, or IWM, right? Like smaller caps. There's always a market rotation, and it's looking like 2024, right, could be a year that SPY, like the broad market, and Qs maybe don't perform so well, and maybe XBI, right, like a biotech sector, maybe outperforms. And that would make sense to me. I mean, just looking at this market, I mean, I talked to John today. He commented on my quoted tweet, right? He's like, I'm like, dude, this has been easy mode for bulls. Buy call options at the money or even out of the money 2 weeks. For the past 3 months, you've been golden. Any dip buy, bang, bought, golden. Wick, hammer, up, see you later. But he, even today, I was like, yo, this is insanity. This won't persist. He goes, I agree, man. I bought, this is him saying this, he bought SQQQ calls, right? That's the short Qs. So he's long a short index of the Qs, which is kind of confusing. It's basically a short position on the Qs. But I think the SQQQ is even levered. So I think he, you know, he actually in it, he bought like a deep in the money weeks out puts, or I mean, they were calls on SQQQ, so they would be like QQQ puts. That's awesome. I was like, damn, I wish I would have, you know, waited to allocate my funds that got whacked on puts today to whatever he was doing. Like, that's a much smarter position, and he's probably going to make bank on that. So you know, he's really doing well. Like, when you can time the ups and you can time the downs, you got like a pulse on the market, shit feels good. And right now I feel like I have the opposite. I feel like I'm buying puts into gap ups. I'm buying calls into gap downs, and it's just like, what am I doing? And usually when I'm doing that, I'm trading against the trend. And that's exactly what I've been doing for the past month or so, trading against the trend. The trend has been glaringly up. I'm a mean reversion trader. It's my natural tendency to want to either short things that are way extended or go long things that are, to the downside extended. But the problem with that is if things just continue trending and there's no mean reversion, you're going to get fucking whacked. So, this is why I'm going back. I'm like, it's been 3 years, my way of trading. Now, trading and investing are two different things, right? Like, I'm not talking about T2 here. T2 is an investment for me. Yes, you can trade it. I'm just talking about options and broad market here. But I almost am just kind of wanting to. It's funny. As soon as I switch to his strategy, because the grass is greener, then the market will turn around and we'll start to get the mean reversion. And so I probably just need to stick to my guns. I probably just need to buy more time, more in the money. I said that I was going to do that. And then today, what do? I buy a 0 DTE at the money put. Stupid, stupid, stupid. That's how you lose money. So don't gamble. That's gambling. Don't do that. There's just no reason. There's no reason to buy 0 DTE. You could buy +1 DTE and still get a very good return. It's just pure greed. Pure greed. That's all it is. Now, selling DTE, selling 0 DTE premium, that's probably a decent idea. But even then, you can get whacked. So it just depends. Depends on the context, depends on the day, the trend.
It just seems like whenever something's in a downtrend, it seems, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it seems like
I mean, if she felt the need to call 911, that's more than a feeling, right? There was intent there.
What are you talking about, Cash?
Oh, sorry.
He's out here talking about another conversation, that guy.
I thought I missed out on something good earlier.
There's a crime story going on.
Yeah, watching a crime show.
Cash is over there with his significant other. She did it. She had intent.
He solved the case there.
Yeah. It was Colonel Mustard in the library with the candlestick. Oh, man. All right, guys. Well, it's going on 11 o'clock Eastern time. I know it's earlier out there at the West. I'm probably going to hit the hay here a little bit and settle down and watch some TV. But hey, man, is tomorrow Thursday? Tomorrow's Thursday. 1 week from tomorrow, we have at least the answer of outstanding share size and revenue. And we'll see. We'll see what our futures hold. All right, y'all. Thanks for joining and hanging in there. You guys have been super fun tonight. Cash, enjoy your criminal show, bro. Later.